this teacher, guess us, might be. Junior might realize.
Yeah, want to show what?
What's that?
Want to show those.
I think we're good. Well,
I was just pretending to punch that Chromebook and it cracked. Oh, I love your job.
would you make a dozen copies of that, please?
It was so good. I got 2 detentions. One was from Notre Dame, and it was board. And the other one I got for doing late daughter class. It was after lunch. Detention for sale. So I went and got no that's
I can see it.
Yeah.
But don't let it. The first 2 weeks.
everybody
I
settled
saw
in.
some east of Monticello that was big.
2 weeks long.
Big field too.
And it was on a Friday too.
It was probably 700 acres. And I know Hopper's got some change over there.
Well, I got that, and we got some other neighbor down between, yeah,
How's it going?
There's a whole.
Oh, we get first that.
Unless she brings a dog, she's walking the dog. I just saw.
All right, I've got 605, 606. Call the budget committee meeting to order. On the agenda, item 1 is call the roll. Item 2 is roll call. We have,
She's running the commission.
sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Cameron?
Yeah, I just checked it. It looks like it's on.
Okay.
I didn't check for sound, but it looks like it's on.
You want me to shut the door?
Yeah.
I can do it.
Well, just
I'm right.
leave it. All right, don't shut it, please.
Okay. I don't think it shuts anyway. Doesn't stay shut, I don't think.
We have Martha, Tim, Jeremy, Mark, and myself. So the first actionable item is item 3, discussion and vote to make recommendations for the corrective action plan for audit findings. So if you pull up the audit, either the draft or what I just sent you, either one will work, they should be both the same when it comes to the findings.
Yes. Yep.
You scroll all the way down to
Page 86.
page 6. At the bottom. So it's page,
Did you send this to the entire board, the draft?
just a minute.
What page you were scrolling to, Bobby?
If you go to page 68 on the document, or 74 on, if you have the digital document. '68 is just after the summary of auditor results, which has the check marks of material weaknesses or deficiencies and federal awards, weaknesses and deficiencies. So if you scroll right to the next page, (2022-1) is lack of financial accounting information and related supporting documentation made available to the county treasurer. The criteria says in order to maintain proper controls over financial reporting, it is essential that the county maintain a complete set of financial accounting records and adequate supporting documentation in accordance with ILCS 53-13002. The Board of Commissioners and any person authorized by the Board of Commissioners, such as the county treasurer, is to have free and unrestricted access to books, papers, records, and memoranda. So the condition is the county does not have a centralized process for maintaining its financial accounting records and related supporting documents, so that it can prepare financial reports that include financial activity for all offices and departments of the county. Additionally, it appears that the certain offices and departments are not compliant with county financial policy that requires that all financial accounting records that are related supporting documentation to be provided to the county treasurer, so that the treasurer can maintain a complete set of accounting records for the entire county. Information requested for audit purposes but not made available to the treasurer include a detailed listing of capital assets by each department of the county at a fiscal year end that includes the date of purchase amount, and assigned useful life of each asset. I thought in discussion that was not the capital asset was not a record that would be held by the treasurer but by the clerk.
We bought a module for the CIC system that it should all be in there that I would guess we would have equal access to. I mean, the clerk is generally in the passive of it, but it should be in the financial software.
So that was first. Information requested for audit purposes but not made available to the treasurer include, number one, the detailed list of capital assets. Number two is a detailed list of accrued compensated balances for each county employee at the fiscal year end. That includes a dollar balance at the beginning of the fiscal year, the hours earned and used during the fiscal year, and hourly pay rates used to calculate the ending balance. So that would be PTO, paid time off, well, sick time.
Personal
sick
vacation, comp time.
Personal vacation, all the PTOs. And then number 3 is the trial balances, which is a detailed ledger of bank statements for the following funds. And those are listed right there below. The sheriff has 2, circuit clerk has 2, SOA has 1, and then the airport has 1, tourism has 1.
Sheriff has 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Circuit clerk has
4. Yeah, there's another column over the side, so there's 4 in the sheriff's department, 3 in the clerk's department, 1 in the SLA, 1 in the airport, and 1 in tourism. So, if you scroll down to the next page, it's section 2 of the findings. It's still the 2022-001 that's continued. So, several offices and departments within the county have historically maintained their accounting records and related supporting documentation independent of the county treasurer. Certain of these offices and departments do not provide the county treasurer with compiled accounting records and related supporting documentation, including trial balances, ledgers, bank statements, vendor invoices, accrued compensated balances, compensated absence detail, and grant voucher and financial reports. Additionally, the county does not appear to have an effective method of enforcing the state statutes requiring all financial accounting records and related supporting documentation to be made within the county treasurer, so that the treasurer can maintain a complete set of accounting records for the county. So, just like it says, the effect of these conditions is that 1, the county treasurer is not able to maintain a complete set of accounting records for the entire county. The treasurer is also not able to ensure that all accounts reconciliations are completed on a monthly basis, including reconciliations for bank accounts, capital assets, and accrued compensation balances. And thirdly, the Board of Commissioners is not able to properly govern over activities of the county that are not being included in various financial reports produced by the county treasurer due to a lack of relevant financial information. So allowing these conditions to persist in the county, its elected officers and other members of management and the Board of Commissioners is at risk of 1, material misstatements being included in the county's financial statements without being detected, non-compliance with regulations, laws, contracts, and agreements, non-compliance with union contracts, and violations of Illinois state statutes. These conditions could all result in suspension of funding from federal and state sources, and investigations of potential abuse of findings or misappropriations of assets, orders to return grant funds, local action from unions, and charge of petty offenses for county officers. The effect of these conditions on a financial statement was that the balance of cash, So the effect of these conditions on the financial statement was that the balance for cash revenue and expenses for general fund were understated, and its fund balance was misstated by the net difference of these balances. So going on to the next page of the first finding. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners enforce the state statute requiring that all accounts, records, and related supporting documentation from all county officers and departments be made available to the treasurer so that there is a process in which all of the county financial activities are compiled, reconciled, and included in a complete set of financial records for the county. We further recommend that for those offices and departments that maintain accounting records to provide with standard format for classifying transactions and compiling financial reports. So then, this is where it says seek corrective action plan, and this is where I'm going to open the floor for discussion on a corrective action plan for the first finding. Have you done anything in legislative as far as work on the findings in the draft? we're going to receive?
I have begun construction of a policy to address this finding.
So simply, simply stated, and it's like I said in the board meeting a couple of weeks ago, it's not that the treasurer has control of those funds that are held by the sheriff and the SOA and the tourism and so on. It is that those records are to be recorded to the treasurer as the financier of the county. That way, when the treasurer turns the financials over to the auditor, it is all there, all complete, and in one format. As far as enforcement, the only thing that I know that we have any control over for enforcement is the budget. So non-compliance of the policy could be a limited budget. That's all I know. Mark?
I'd like to ask Erica, these different departments that list these various accounts, at any time that you know of, since you've been here looking in past records, were any of those reported previously? Or has this always been?
Not
Because
these.
every audit that we've had since I know I've been on the board, this has been brought to our attention, and we've tried to do something about it, and with failed attempts.
I will say the part about the benefit time, that was a part of the HR resolution that was passed, I think in 2020, that all benefit time is to be tracked through payroll. We had non-compliance for a while, got compliance with all but one department last November when we switched to electronic timekeeping. Which I might add is more important now than ever with the paid time off for part-time employees that we have to track.
Which department is it that we're having trouble with?
The health department still refuses to report. And the CIC system is able to produce a report of all, to produce that report for each employee, how much time would be accrued.
But it's also a reiteration of why it's so important to have the balances on record going into the fiscal year. Because if there's no record on file, then if there's no trial balance to do the testing.
It's basically a master spreadsheet that covers everything, and if you don't have everything on the master sheet, then you can't account for everything. I think each department is doing their bookkeeping, but they have to turn in reporting.
I will say on that supervisor of assessments, she turns in, that money, to my knowledge, it's the only account. I think what they're saying is the supporting documentation, which I looked up that statute, which is 130001. It states exactly what has to be on that, which is the name of whoever's presenting the money. It says in that statute exactly what details are supposed to be there. We get the money, we deposit it, but we don't know what, can't be provided to the auditor what day, did they receive it, who paid it, that kind of thing.
So, in the grand scheme of a corrective action plan is not to create the plan, it is to create a timeline. So, is the recommendation of this committee to the full board to put it back on legislative to address the issues and create a policy and say it has to be created and passed in 3 months and enforced in 6. I don't know. But that's what we're here to talk about right now is this. And then the nice thing is too, I asked him directly the other day, I said, so we get this final draft, we approve the final draft, we're in the process of creating a corrective action plan. Can the corrective action plan be injected into it, later as an addendum to the audit? Because, we're trying to create something in response to. And he said, absolutely, we can add this, to the audit. It wouldn't affect the audit itself. It is our response rate to the audit. And then if you look, there is the spot. Where is that? It's on the third page of this first finding. It says see corrective action plan. So.
So I have a question. If the statute spells it out, what's supposed to happen and what documents are supposed to be turned in, why do we need a policy that just says follow statute? I mean, if the statute's there and all the language is in the statute, why do we need to reinvent the wheel with the policy as opposed to?
So my experience with policies is it is it's a layman's term of the statute. Statute says thee, thou, whatever, and everybody goes, I don't understand that. That's old language. I don't understand it. However, if you write it as a different way, I've experienced that in other governmental policies.
Another thing about the policy is, for example, the statute, I think 13002 says those reports should be submitted every 6 months. However, that statute is going on 35 years old, and there's enough continuing business going on that it might be a good idea to have that monthly as opposed to every 6 months. So we could put something like that in there. We couldn't expand it out to a greater time frame like yearly. The statute limits to 6 months, but probably or less would be appropriate. And in this draft that I talked about just a minute ago, I have it down as monthly now because there are some departments that are reporting monthly, and so it coincides with what's already happening with some departments.
That statute also actually says that it's to be reported to the board. The board is to audit those reports, and then that money to be turned over to the treasurer. It's not even my job to audit them. It's the board's job.
So the board can create a policy that's more stringent than the statute. You just can't go less than that.
I would also like to, on another line here, it says repeat findings. This finding also occurred in 2020, 2019, and 2017, so this is not something new at all.
Mark, what page are you on, please?
Actually, I believe it's right below, I've got page 76 on here, this is the picture.
Okay. On the electronic document, so next.
Yeah, it's right before 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Two.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, so 2022 is the second finding, and 2019 is the fifth finding, and 2017 is the second finding.
Is there a reason that it either didn't show up in 2018 or that Benford didn't have 2018's audit to include?
2017 would have been Mozart Brown.
18 was as well.
18 was Mozart
19
Brown.
and 20 were West.
Yep. 21 was Whitfleet, 22 is here.
So they just didn't have the 18 audit from,
I
It
don't-
may not have stated, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look.
So back to legislative, then you need to get this policy written, Bobby. And you mentioned enforcement, the only thing that the board has the control over is the budget. So does the policy need to have language in it stating if the policy is not complied with, that is going to happen?
it's going to be
Or-
a legal counsel question.
Yeah, it's going to be a council question, but it's also going to be, it can't be done, and this is my off-the-cuff speculative opinion, is it can't be done on site. Like, if you have two reoccurring, disregard the policy, 2 years where you're completely non-compliant with the policy. Well, the first year if you got a warning, the second year,
Year or month? Because if it's going to be monthly reports,
but when you set the budget, you cannot change it.
I know what you're saying. Okay.
So it would be year one, slap on the wrist, year two, you might actually require, and I don't know if the policy could write in, it's 30% reduction in budget from current year, not from proposed current year.
Does statute allow that?
That's what I mean, I don't know. But that's the only way that you start setting these guidelines in stone is follow policy or your budget's going to be cut.
Well, that statute kind of like says that you can be subject to a petty offense.
Or the board would have to take,
The statute does say shall be guilty of, and then it's just a matter of seeing whether it got done or not. I will kick in. I think courts have ruled that retaliatory budget decreases are impermissible.
really,
I think so.
Statute's very clear that you have to provide the budget for us to run our offices because we are an extension of the state. Everything that we do is an extension of the state. We're carrying it out for the state. So
It has to be
you cannot
sufficient.
reduce our budget so that we,
Has to be sufficient to run the office.
to run the office.
Now, does that mean that the department necessarily gets 100% of what they ask for? No, maybe they get 97% of what they, the numbers are what the numbers are. But I think courts have ruled retaliatory budget decreases are impermissible. I could be wrong.
that's good.
Now, the last paragraph of that, of 13002 does refer to being guilty of a petty offense. And any officer named herein who fails to enter fees and book as required by the division or to use the books, forms, reports, records as provided herein to be used by them in the counties of the third class, or who makes a false entry of the same, or who falsifies a semi-annual report shall be deemed guilty of a petty offense of malfeasance in office. For each offense, 1/2 of such fine to be paid to the complainant and 1/2 to the county treasurer. So, the statute does.
So there's your,
It even imposes a monetary discipline.
well, it imposes the discipline as well as the means of getting there that has to go through court action.
Somebody has to prosecute that.
So there's some discussion on the policy.
Back to the timeline on the policy. My hope is to bring it in October. Is for go through legislative, the treasurer's office, the auditor, legal counsel, and come back with a proposal in October. That's my hope.
Well, October still has, it doesn't hardly affect, it won't affect 23 and it hardly affects 24, but it could start getting 24 in shade. That would definitely affect 25. So is there a motion or recommendation to take to the full board?
I'll make the motion.
Well, to do,
I mean, we're taking, to take to the full board, a tentative,
To put it in hands of legislative? Is that-
yeah, so I'll make the motion to recommend to the full board that the legislative committee needs to create a policy according, or to remedy audit finding 2022-001. The policy needs to be, the policy out of legislative needs to be completed in 90 days and implemented 30 days after that. Actually, let's not 30 days, let's do 90 days post approval.
I'll second that.
So did you
if
catch
you
all
go
that?
if you go 60 days to be passed through legislative and 30 to be implemented, will we not then be right up to the next budget year? To where that budget year starts with policy implemented? I mean, wouldn't that be the goal, that we start 2025 with all this in place and ready to go, so that there are no issues with 2025?
If it's implemented in early 25, December, January, there should be no issue of getting that policy up to date, or compliance with that policy up to date, because you're only 30 to 60 days in the fiscal year. It's not like we're digging back 2 years to find information. But I'm giving the committee 90 days to develop the policy, and then 90 days after the policy is approved to be implemented. So if they bring it in 30, they'll have 90 after 30 to implement. The board will have 90 after 30. So my motion is to allow 90 to develop it, then 90 after that, after approval, to implement.
Go ahead and make the motion.
Well, and I need to write it down. Motion is to recommend to the full board to task legislative committee with creating a policy to remedy audit finding 2022-001 allowing 90 days to propose to full board and 90 days after passage to implement.
I would like to amend that.
Let me get my ink on paper.
Couldn't do that before, could you?
No, it needs to be there.
Yeah, he needs.
Okay, amendment.
I think action should be implemented within 30 days after The reason being is they're already doing it on their own. They have those records for their own position. Because I think they're basically passing on a copy of that to be kept in the treasurer's office. So I think they would have already been doing the work.
They just need simply to forward it.
Yes. I mean, if they're doing their job, they're already doing the tally.
Is that what it looks like when you get something, is that they,
We're not getting all of those. I mean, just, I know with like the supervisor of assessments and, you know, I'm sure that the circuit clerk is doing that. And I get one report for the airport for their money market account, checking account. I would think if he's keeping the same thing, but the farm account, nothing is reported. I mean, I can only assume.
but when you get something, it looks like they're generating their report, so all they need to do is forward it.
I don't get all of these reports. I only get a couple. And I use the supervisor of assessments as an example. We get a report. It's just not broken down with any kind of supportive documentation or in the guidelines of 13001. The one report I do get from the airport is broken down in detail by who, except I need to ask the auditors because their credit card payments don't state who paid it. It just states it's a credit card payment. I don't know if it needs to be that detailed or not. The way the statute reads, you know, that statute 1301 says that every county officer of counties of the first and second class or first class who collects fees shall, in a book to be kept for that purpose, keep a full, true, and minute account of all the fees and emoluments of his office or her office, designating in corresponding columns the amount of all fees and emoluments earned and all payments received on account thereof, and showing the name of each person or persons paying fees and the amount received from each person, and shall also keep an account of all expenditures made by him or her on account of clerk hire, stationery, fuel, and that. So
I think we're class 3 county, so I think we're 13002.
I think we're class 1.
The audit report what it shows in here is 13002.
Well, I think that's a mistake.
And I don't know if there's a difference between the language in the two, but we need to make sure we understand which.
One of them's for counties of less than 25,000 people.
And I thought that was first class.
I did. And I will, was that a motion to amend?
Yes.
I will second the motion to amend as well.
Okay, so our current discussion is on reducing the 90-day implementation to a 30-day implementation.
Correct.
Any discussion on taking 90 to 30?
My problem with this whole thing is if it's punitive, we already have a problem keeping people. And if you do something that's punitive, I think you're going to have a lot of problem keeping supervisors. And
So this is a process for the department heads. So either they're appointed or elected. So
they won't have problems. Probably keeping people.
We're not going to write a policy that is any stricter than what statute reads. The statute's what defines the petty offense, not us. That's in statute, that's in writing.
well, two things. One, the board would have to take a legal action against the department head, and then two, it would have to be picked up and prosecuted by the state's attorney. So you have two mechanisms there that may or may not take any action. But if the policy's not there is no action to be taken. And that's where the board has been hamstrung for probably a few decades, is whatever they've done is whatever they've done. And right, wrong, or indifferent, we've got multiple years of audit findings that says this is incorrect. So either we can take a step to correct it. Okay, so let's go back to another issue. And since we're here on the subject of findings, if you go right back up to page 67, if you look at it, it says the financial statements are qualified, material weaknesses were identified, significant deficiencies identified in the financial statements, none were reported. But non-compliance material to financial statements noted, yes. And when you keep going through, it said material weaknesses identified in the federal awards, yes, material weaknesses were identified. Significant deficiencies identified, there again, none reported. Type of report, auditor issue on the compliance for major federal programs, here again, it's qualified. Any finding disclosed that were required to be reported in the CFR section 200.516 of the Uniform Guidance, check mark yes. Is auditee qualified as low risk auditee? No. So 3 or 4 years ago, when I was having the same conversation with Weston Company, so you're not low risk, you require more testing because there's so much discrepancy of information, discrepancy of form of information, discrepancy of policy and procedure, that being that we don't have policy and procedure, we are at heightened risk. So with that said, the audit's going to cost us more, it takes more time and everything else. The other thing is, when you are qualified as a low-risk auditee, then you come off of federal radars, state radars, as far as risk management for those entities as well, being federal or state. So creating the policies and getting them implemented are crucial to getting that one little check mark from a low-risk auditee from, are we a low risk, and it says no. So we need to get that over yes. That means we don't have, policy issues. Because our financials may look pretty decent, but they can't prove it's correct because of the reporting and how our county does stuff. So I said all of that to reiterate the fact that policy and procedure is crucial to audit procedures. It is crucial to our stature within all of our grantors, whether it be state or federal, within health, rural transit, highway, et cetera, on down the line. All those are heavily grant funded. And if we've got issues with risk, then it starts to push up on that, pushes up on the radar and starts being washed pretty hard. So anyway, so we'll go back to Mark's amendment to reduce the implementation of the policy to 30 days after passage. Jeremy seconded. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So I've got
This lobby I found in 55 ILCS 5 4-1, counties containing a population of of not exceeding 25,000 inhabitants shall be known as counties of the first class.
Say that again.
Counties containing a population of not exceeding 25,000 inhabitants shall be known as counties of the first class. We're a first-class county.
So is the, yeah, so 13002.
Gotta read all the way to the bottom until they talk about the first and second class counties. Most of the first part's about third class counties, which are over 1 million.
So everything still applies. Yep, but either way, the actual policy content is going to be something that legislators are going to handle, and I'm sure with the advice of council along the way. So the motion to amend passed. So back to the main motion, recommend the full board to take the legislative committee creating a policy to remedy the audit finding 2022-001, allowing 90 days to propose a policy and as amended 30 days post passage to implement the policy. Second was by Jeremy. Any discussion on this? Back to hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. Next slide. (2022-002). Yeah, so 02 and 01 are conjunctive with each other. So 1, we'll start to fix 2. So we'll go through it as a whole. So 2022-002 is material weakness in internal control over financial reporting. So the criteria is Shelby County is required to maintain a system of controls over preparation of financial statements in accordance with the modified cash basis. County internal controls over financial reporting should include adequately trained personnel with knowledge and ability to prepare and/or thoroughly review the cash modified basis financial statements to ensure that they are free from material misstatements and include all disclosures as required by the governmental accounting standards board. So it looks like they've got something. So the GASB statement number 34 of basic financial statements, management's discussion and analysis for state and local governments requires governments to present government-wide and fund financial statements as well as a summary reconciliation of total government fund balances to the net position of the governmental activities in the statement of net position and total change in governmental fund balances to the change in the net position of the governmental activities in the statement of activities. In addition, the statement requires information about the government major and non-major funds in the aggregate to be provided in the fund financial statements. And that's out of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, their number 34 financial statement. So, internal control findings continued. So the condition is the county does not have internal control procedures in place to ensure that its annual financial statements and related footnote disclosures are properly prepared, received, and presented in accordance with modified cash basis of the county. So this is the part, well, let me get through the rest of it before we start jabbering. The county does not have an internal control personnel or contracted personnel with requisite skills, knowledge, and experience to prepare financial statements and footnotes. As a result, the county relies on its audit firm to prepare its financial statements and related footnote disclosures. So the effect is that the controls over financial reporting are significantly weakened by significantly increasing likelihood that a material misstatement of the financial statements and/or missing required disclosures will not be detected by management. And this is also a repeated finding of 2020, 2016, and 2016 through 2019. So this one would reference a 2018 finding as well. So the recommendation is that management either provide training for its key accounting personnel so they'll be able to prepare financial statements and footnotes for the county, or contract with an accountant or a firm that has relevant skills, knowledge, and experience to prepare financial statements and footnotes. So at this point, it is, well, it says here, it says seek corrective action plan. So now we're at corrective action plan again.
So I have a question. If all the reports were received by your office, will your software prepare or be capable of preparing financial statements?
We can prepare the trial balances, probably part of the financial statements, but I don't know that we would have the skill set for the footnotes. But it is something that, I mean, we could be trained on, but again, if we don't even have accurate trial balances, I mean, that's the problem with the auditors. They can't produce accurate footnotes.
So, being that is that a function of an internal auditor?
Probably in larger counties, yeah.
So,
And most of the counties around us don't prepare their own financial statements, and he made that comment in his, in the last meeting, that he doesn't have, you know, it is a specialized area. There's no requirement for a treasurer to do it. But again, with not even having accurate trial balances, which we can produce if we have all the information, we can't even provide that to somebody.
and where I was making full circle here, so if an internal auditor could do the financial reports and the prep for the auditors, or, you know, rather than having a full-time employee of the county, because it would being such a specialized skill set, they'd have to be compensated for it, I'm sure, because that's not anything that's just a, I don't know, that's not a part-time job to me, but, so my suggestion.
No, but if they were given accurate numbers without having to go, you know, run them down everywhere, it'd be a lot less work. Because they would be able to, they'd have it all right there, and they would be able to produce it.
But I've always leaned towards the notion of taking and hiring a audit firm to prep the reports and numbers for the audit. The only reason why I say audit firm is because they are CPAs and they already have they should have the knowledge base of what the auditors are going to require. So they're doing the financial reports.
Am I understanding what you mean is hiring one auditor to prepare the report and another auditor to audit the reports?
Well, in a sense,
You
that's
have
what
to,
you guys
because you can't
do.
prepare and audit your own report. That was
Right,
one of the big issues that Governor Brown had this year's, they prepared our financial statements for us, and then they're auditing there, and that's,
Actually, a conflict.
yeah. and
That's what Weston Company did too. I think it's why they quit, because they gave us one chance. I'm gonna be honest, we've not had this conversation in the almost 6 years I've been here. There's never been a discussion about a corrective action plan, ever. As a budget audit has been reviewed, but I think we didn't make changes with West. They gave us a second year. We didn't make changes, and Whitley,
So this,
they just didn't even tolerate us, period.
Well, it was a recurrent finding with Mo's Yacht and Ground. It was a recurrent finding with, as Whitley knew going into it, because, they can read past audits and go, okay, these are findings, and they can take a look at our system and go, nothing's changed. And I kind of wonder if they just didn't do, I said it once, so I'll say it again, they didn't complete their audit. However, if they qualified their audit, stating that they have incomplete records, they have this problem, this problem, this problem, they could, if I remember right, they could have no findings and say, our opinion is completely, basically 100% qualified, and the qualification is we don't have good numbers to work with, so garbage in, garbage out. And I wonder if that's, without going back and reading it, it's been 2 or 3 years, if that wasn't the case. Because they did not complete our cipher or CFR. I had to call them back in March. And basically put my thumb on and said, you gotta finish this so we can keep our data portal open. Otherwise, we were gonna lose grant funding because then we couldn't complete our CFA and cipher. So, and they finished it, but yeah, they were wanting to wash their hands of this. And they weren't gonna dump any more funds and their own resources into nothing. Benjamin Brown and Weston Company both, it cost us more in the second year, but they also stayed with us a second year to get, just to see if these problems could remedy. And when they saw they were not remedied, that's when we got fired. So,
So does it need to go to the full board because when the corrective action plan to finding number 1 is implemented, and all those reports are going to the Treasury Department, and then that system can generate the trial balances and all of that stuff, then would it not make sense to go to the full board to hire an auditing firm to prepare the financial statements and footnotes that then get sent to the auditing firm? So I would make a motion that we
so here, it would be probably a duplication of the first one.
as a duplication of the first one.
you mean whether or not to hire someone to prepare the statements, the reports? That should probably come out of this committee.
Well, sure.
Unless you want it to be in the board rules that each year a financial statement preparer will do that, then that could go through legislative.
I just think it makes sense to hire a firm to prepare the financial statement footnotes. Like you said, if all the data is there and they're just taking the data and preparing the statements, it shouldn't be, it's not like it should be the same cost or equivalent of the auditor.
It should be a lot less.
They're taking all the information and just putting it into the format that it needs to be in
And this is
to be compliant.
This is in lieu of having a county auditor, because we're not big enough a county to warrant having a full-time auditor on staff.
Right, I think, in my opinion, hiring a third party CPA firm to do that makes more sense than trying to hire. I don't think you're gonna get an employee at on an annual base, annual salary for, the money that you would spend for a third-party firm to do it once a year.
Yeah, so we could make a motion to follow the recommendation. I just don't know if it should be an addition to the policy that the legislature is going to create.
It can be. We can work that in.
I see what you're saying, just included in that
Two birds
overall
with one
margin.
stone. We can do that. Because the whole issue is centralization of accounting, record keeping, reporting processes.
So we could start the.
To me, they're not the same, because in finding one, we're writing policy for the departments to follow, that it's going to mirror statute, reiterating it in layman's term. Hiring a third party to take all of the data that's been gathered and create the appropriate reports with footnotes is not a policy. That's not a part of policy. So
I would say it's part of procedure, and that is part of policy.
It can be.
And that's my argument.
It can.
but that's something that's going to probably have to be bid out.
I wouldn't think it would cost that much.
It's either A, going to be specialized services, or B, it's going to be under a threshold.
Okay.
Yeah, auditing is a professional service. I think it's exempt from the bid threshold because of that, isn't it? It's a professional service. And also, I can't imagine it costing $30,000 to put reports together. We're not asking them to audit.
I hope not, but that's probably what's taking the most time of the auditors. Because it doesn't take them into.
Well, but it was taking time with them because the data wasn't there.
Yeah.
If we have a procedure that says the data's all going to be there and the trial balances print out of the
The
system,
rest of the
they're not
format
gonna
is
be-
what you prints it out to be able to be read.
yeah.
You don't get the data in one place first.
Yeah. And that part of the procedures to do that, then it's there. Where in the past it hasn't been, and the problem in their time consumption has been attempting to obtain that.
You want to write it in the rules of the board?
I think we could, I think we could do that if, perhaps right beneath the rule that states that the budget has to be passed by a 2/3 majority of the board. I mean, it's an audit of the annual budget. It could be in there that the board shall procure the services of a, what do you want to call them, professional accountant or?
Audit prep.
Audit prep.
Well, it's contracting an accountant or a firm that has their own skills, knowledge, and experience to prepare financial statements. So we need to just qualify it as an accounting firm that would have the skill set to prep the financials.
Qualified accounting firm to assist with audit.
Put that in there if you would.
So, is there a motion on the floor? I just said some stuff, but it wasn't a motion. So, somebody would like to reiterate a motion?
So are we doing a separate motion, or are we doing this as a part of the policy procedure that we passed in number one, finding number one, corrective action? Or this is separate? Which way did we decide to go?
We haven't decided anything. We've been in discussion about really nothing. There's nothing that's been pointed out for a subject of discussion except for the agenda item of discussion to make recommendations for corrective action plan. So we're in the process of discussing and making a corrective action plan.
if you want a motion to kick this over to legislative, that's fine. If you just want legislative to take it up, because we said so in the meeting, it can go on a legislative agenda. I mean, we've talked about building that into the policy part of it. I can just include that.
So,
I'd like to ask Erica, do you feel like it would take a special skill set to be able to put this into the type of report that they're asking for? Do you feel like?
The financial statements and footnotes,
Yes.
I think it probably would.
Okay.
But it,
I'm
because
trying
it
to get an
brings,
idea of the capacity
Yeah.
with which this information is given to you as to whether this would be something that'd be easy to learn and print out or not.
I mean, there's definitely training out there, and I've talked to the auditor about it, but it's a matter of also, you know, how many more people do I want to hire in my office? You know, and is it cost prohibitive for the training? And, you know, if I have somebody there with a skill set or somebody has that skill set, I mean, I already need to hire one more person in my office. If we start getting all of these reports on a monthly basis, you know, that's a lot of entry. You know, so is it cost prohibitive to do that? I can't imagine that if we can't provide an actual trial balance for the county, that,
I know they're talking about being a special type of
right,
report that fits the auditors,
right.
and whether you felt like, since you've dealt with them more than any of us, whether you thought that was something exceptionally special.
I mean, I know there's training for it, but again, is it cost prohibitive?
Okay.
How many employees do we want in the treasurer's office?
I'm going to spin this to a different aspect. It doesn't matter who's in the courthouse, if they have a skill set or not, but we know that we can probably always hire somebody to do it.
True.
Because if an office is required to have an employee with a specific skill set, that starts to limit that position to who can do it. And if that person gets qualified, and then halfway or at audit time they
Leave employment.
leave for multitude of reasons, we're back to trying to train somebody or hire somebody. So my opinion is hire somebody.
And none of the counties around us do their own financial statements.
Okay.
None of them do?
No. But they can probably provide trial balances.
Mhm.
So, in terms of discussion of 2022-002, corrective action plan, is there a motion to, do we want to recommend the full board?
I would make the recommendation that we take it to the full board for legislative to take this up as a part of the financial statement policy that, you know, that they'll be drafting.
So you're gonna have one item on next week's agenda then for legislative to write up a centralization policy, and another agenda item to add something to that policy?
It could be the creation of an audit policy, and in this audit policy will be the procedures for the following.
So it would be a whole separate policy,
It would be part of the policy.
part of the same policy. So you're gonna use a second agenda item to add something to the first.
So I was thinking you were going to make a motion to make a recommendation that in corrective action plan B, that the board hires a auditing or a accountant.
Lieutenant.
So
Well, I'll make that motion 100%. I mean, that's,
So for the
I thought
lack,
that was gonna be, I thought it had to be a part of the policy, so I'll scratch my first one. I will make the motion that we take to the full board to approve hiring a CPA firm.
For the audit
For audit prep.
preparation.
Okay, so if we get a second, I'm gonna have a question, as long as I can remember.
I'll say that.
Okay. Is that gonna be just for the 23 audit and the 24 audit?
it just be for 24, there's no time for 23.
It'd just be for 24. So it's a one-time deal.
It's gonna be every year.
Future boards can do the same thing, but what we're talking about is just for the 24 audit. We could write it into the policy and,
Well, hang on a second. So we have recommended the full board to hire an accounting firm to prepare financials for auditors.
It's Watson's idea, essentially. What I put. Hope I didn't get them stupid.
Mark seconded that. In discussion, would there want to be an amendment, in addition? But the reason I say that is what we have is the recommendation of the full board to hire an accounting firm to prepare the financials, for the auditor.
if we're thinking this is a good idea going forward, why wouldn't we just include it as part of the policy, that we do this every year ongoing?
We're still,
Yeah.
future boards could always change it.
Sure they can, if they find it doesn't work. If they find something different, if the industry changes.
So can you make an amended motion to just take to the full board to write into the financial statement policy that legislative is working on?
We can, but then we still have one agenda item where it says legislative is going to write the policy, and a second agenda item that says, and in that policy, legislative is going to include something else, when it could all just be one nice little bundle. See,
Well,
we're,
people are here to ask questions for you guys to have some time to think about that and refine it. Because ours is just a suggestion. You can still, they can still combine.
yeah, but can you imagine the discussion next Thursday? Hey, we just had legislative write this policy, and now we're going to have a whole nother motion and second and discussion on putting this second thing in that policy. Why don't we just do it?
So we just want to scratch this whole thing and
I mean, I think so, because if we're going to write a policy, the policy should address every finding
so
that we're discussing tonight. I don't,
At least if it's in the same category, yeah.
Yeah.
And we said that several of these findings pile on top of finding number one. That was why it was finding number one, I'm sure. So I can just say, I'm gonna amend the draft of the policy that I've got to include what we've talked about to fix finding number two. The solution piggybacks just like the finding number two piggybacks on finding number one.
I would throw my motion.
Did that make sense? Can legislators do that? Okay.
So we're going to actually make a recommendation for anything on this?
See the name?
All right, so moving on to 2022-003. This one's budgeting. 55 ILCS 5/6-1002 sets forth requirements for the annual budget. The budget shall classify all estimated receipts and proposed expenditures and all amounts in the treasury of the county. And all amounts in the treasury of the county. Under the several counties' funds now provided by law. So, the condition is the county prepared annual budgets for some of its funds, but not all. The cause is the county follows the processes that historically been in place. Follows the processes historically been in place over time and with changes in personnel. The process has deviated from the requirement of 5-600 or 1002. So the effect is the lack of transparency, failing to follow the budget statute can undermine transparency in financial management. Budgets serve as a key tool for communicating financial plans, priorities, and allocations of public funds. And without comprehensive budgets that without a comprehensive budget that includes all funds, the county may hinder transparency and impede the public access to information. Misallocation of the resource. Not preparing a budget for all funds can lead to misallocation of resources. Budgets help guide financial decisions, ensuring that funds are allocated appropriately and in a line with strategic goals. Without accurate and comprehensive budgeting, the county may struggle to make well-informed decisions, potentially leading to inefficiency, waste, or mismanagement of resources. So the next part is compliance issues. Failure to comply with the budget statute may result in legal and regulatory consequences. Non-compliance can lead to legal actions, fines, or other penalties imposed by regulatory bodies or oversight authorities. Such consequences can impact the county reputation and finances. So the accounting and reporting challenges, when certain funds are excluded from the budget, it can create challenges in financial accounting and reporting. Incomplete budgets may make it difficult to accurately track and report financial performance, hindering effective financial analysis, auditing, and overall fiscal oversight. So this is a repeat finding. The condition has occurred in 2021, 2020, but was not reported as a finding prior to 2021. Does that sound right?
Pardon me?
That doesn't sound right. This condition was occurred in 21 and 20, but not reported as a finding. Oh, that sounds correct. It is correct.
Yeah.
So it is a repeat finding. It's just the way I've read it. Okay. So the recommendation is that the county review the specific provisions of 55 ILCS 5/6-1002 to understand the county's obligations for budget preparations and the process for amending the budget. We further recommend that the county prepares budgets for all of its funds in order to improve its ability to monitor its financial activity during the fiscal year.
Does this have anything to do with the times that a liability was created prior to a budgetary amendment? Is that what it's referring to when it says?
I was wondering if this was referring to the fact that those accounts that were listed are not being reported.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use the term unknown. They're known to the people that have them, but not necessarily known even to the full board. And I don't think anybody knows about tourism. But if we take care of finding one and they all get reported there, then I think the policy we write can include something to the effect that those funds also become a part of the normal and customary budget process.
So finding 3 here is basically saying, yes, there's fund activity on funds not on Yeah. Fund shop budgeted. So if and I'll just go back up to page,
I think there were also some funds that went over their budget amount.
yeah, and that we have to find in the footnotes. But, so for example, of the 12, 4, 7, 10, of the 10 bank accounts that are listed on page 68, those all have activity, may not have a budget,
But they're not budgeted.
or what they're saying is there isn't a budget,
Which is not a fund, but they are monies out of certain funds. Those monies should be, and I don't know statutorily, all of those should be in the general fund, or if some of them that are clerk fees are in, some of the various funds, we would have to get clarification on that. But some of them would clearly be part of the general fund. Tourism has its own fund that is budgeted, but then I think one year they failed to turn in a budget and we didn't have a budget, but clearly there was expenditures out of it.
Did they classify tourism as a component unit?
Say it again?
Did they classify tourism as a component unit? So it's,
Yes, but they said all financials still have to be reported through the county,
right,
even though the airport is technically a component unit,
it's still,
but they still have to be reported.
Still has to approve that budget.
it's still a component of the county, it's not,
Well, the tourism has its own bank account that I just found out about, that has somewhere around $100,000. I don't know, nobody knows what's going in or out of that. What the county has budgeted for tourism, which is 015, I believe, is simply what we take in for the hotel motel tax. We deposit it, then they make a claim, and they take it out and put it in a separate bank account. Whatever happens with that bank account's not being reported, and the auditors are saying that needs reported. But it would also need budgeted.
so of this discussion, item 3. So the finding, is just simply called budget. It's not.
This is the one we got sidetracked on a little bit.
Yeah.
When it was being asked, was there a budget or not, or was a budget just not provided to the auditor to audit? Because we were asking, how in the world does such and such a department not have a budget? And it wasn't that it didn't have a budget, it's that there were some funds within the budget that didn't have anything in them, but yet they had expenditures come out of them. Wasn't that what we got off on?
Like the same, I mean, they may have a budget, whether they spend it or not, but according to what it says here, it's listed to be approved by the county. Even though they made up their budget and approved it internally, the county didn't approve it.
It wasn't approved for that line item, but then we always tell department heads, if the total amount's in your budget, you can move it around if you need to. It doesn't have to be per line item, it just has to be per office. You can take a little from here and give a little to there. So this is like giving an overall amount, and they put it in line items that we didn't have. Is that right? No? Okay.
No, their either overall office budget went over or a fund went over.
Okay.
So,
Funds and line items aren't necessarily the same thing.
That's true.
There's not a
But there's fund and office, like I'm office 004, but my budget is out of the general fund. Everybody's office is out of the general fund. We have different office numbers, but our office budget has to stay within whatever that has been approved for that office.
But you can move money from one line item.
Line item doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's the office budget.
but this
Total.
is funds. You could have more than one fund in a line item. Yeah.
So you can have more than one bank account in a fund. A fund is a very specific, the general fund, the mental health fund, the IMRF fund, the social security fund. They can have different accounts. So we have to be careful how we use the word fund because
Yeah,
we see a
you're
lot
right.
of confusion.
So if, back to number one, if we write the policy for number one and all the documents and everything, the ILCS 130102 are being followed, then can we not also then write a provision into the policy that each of those funds, every fund,
Including these 10
has
that
to
are not bid in.
be included in the budget. So now these 10
they're basically savings accounts, or checking accounts.
but they have to be budgeted.
Yeah, but right now, but the basic term of what they are is a checking account. And that of which has to have a budget and a fund attached to it.
Right. Or they might have multiple accounts, savings accounts. I mean, their general fund's probably got 5 or 6 accounts right now if you include certificates of deposit. But various departments control different funds, and it's up to each department head to provide a budget for whatever fund they control.
But in the past, these accounts that haven't been reported through the Treasurer's Department haven't been budgeted either.
They haven't been a part of a budget. Some of them may not be a part of the general fund budget.
Right. So if you look at the name of the bank account that's attached to the sheriff's office, there's inmate fund, there's stellar inmate, and then there's special account.
Wonder what Tim looks below.
We have no idea what those are there for. You know, we have no idea if the fund's going in and out of them. The circuit clerk has the child support fund, as well as the marriage fund, the Fourth Judicial Circuit Trust. And I call them funds, they're not funds, they're basically
Accounts.
bank accounts. Now they need to be, and with the circuit clerk's office, I'm sure that there's rules and regs to how those are budgeted and reported, because I'm sure that those reports have to be, you know, there's pretty probably non-public information in some of that reporting that may have to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume there has to be reports to on the judicial side of that.
Yeah, especially on the judicial side, but, so, you know, if the tourism has a bank account, the airport farm has a bank, or the airport has a bank account for the farm, and SOA's got a SOA bank account, those funds need to be, those accounts need to be reported to the Treasury, just like in finding 001, and you start to rectify the problems of 003.
So one thing I've got in the draft of this policy is that I'll make sure to include all funds and all accounts. I'll use both bits of language, but I've also got in there, I think, regardless of whether they've been reported in the past, and also any new accounts or funds that come into being will fall under jurisdiction of the policy. So hopefully that language will help bring this more into compliance.
Public safety meeting upstairs. Yep. Is this locked?
I think
No,
you
it's,
just have to push hard.
yeah,
Should be open anyway, Bobby. It's against OMA to have it shut.
yeah, it doesn't need to be shut anyway. You just kind of, if you leave it just,
There you go.
well, actually just leave it open.
Finger out, but
Yeah, I just had a hard time hearing her.
Well, I don't know, I don't have two meetings at once, but.
Well, there was a bunch of noise in the hallway, so we tried to muffle the noise in the hallway earlier.
No, I was saying, I don't know how you guys have two meetings at once. Aren't we supposed to be able to attend both as members of the public?
I never really had.
All right.
I did not intentionally schedule it, and we have another one. So, 3, 2, pretty much gets wrapped up into 1. Let's go on to 4.
So basically with 3, we just need to include it in the,
You can leave, Jake, you can leave that open.
That has to stay open.
Don't believe.
It's fine.
Finding 4, continue. Finding 4.
Page 73.
There it is.
It's right.
Oh, there it is.
yeah, 79 if you're
It's at the
looking.
bottom half of the page. So material weakness and internal control over activities allowed or unallowed, and this is a mouthful. Material weakness and internal control over activities allowed or unallowed and allowable cost principles. So this one is largely probably related to ARPA, is it not? So the criteria is the county is responsible for keeping an accurate record of all federal expenditures and maintaining all the required documentation and reports in accordance with.
Let's just
Just leave it open.
it's locked.
It's not locked, it's hard to push on.
I'll get it.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
So basically it says the county is responsible for keeping an accurate accounting of all federal expenditures and maintaining all the required documentation and reports in accordance with the applicable federal regulations. So the condition is for AL number 21027, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery fund. A sample of employee payroll transactions were tested for activities allowed or unallowed and allowable cost principles. The county was not able to provide adequate supporting documentation of the time and effort. Examples would be timesheets and time cards charged to the CS, which is the Coronavirus State and Local Recovery Program. So the cause is the county does not have a consistent process for tracking and recording in each employee's time spent on various activities, so that the portion of each employee's salary and wages allocated to each grant and or activity can be calculated. So, to hear that correctly, the county does not have a consistent process, so activity can be calculated. The effect is the county is not in compliance with activities allowed or unallowed and allowable cost principles required of its federally funded programs. So is this a repeat finding? It is. And being that it's a finding in 2019, this is not just ARPA. This is any potentially any of the grant-funded departments.
Any grant funds.
Right. So if an employee is receiving payment, compensation, wages from a grant, this finding applies. Because the county in 2022 did not have consistent processing of payroll.
That was a major finding in 2020 of a potential grant fraud of up to over $90,000. Because, and then the federal law that was provided from Weston Company was that you cannot base grant funding for employees' compensation off of budgets or schedules. And we have one department that still continues to turn in schedules. We've had another department revert back to probably over half of their employees turning in timesheets that are nothing more than a schedule. I would say that this item was fixed in November of last year when we went to electronic timekeeping and all time except for the health department who refused to do that. And then we did a backwards step in June when another department refuses to clock in. So we made the necessary fix that now we're not doing, except for the health department who's refused all the way around.
So, back to a corrective action plan on this though, whatever policy that a board puts in place, there's got to be teeth in it. And if accurate, consistent, and even, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent process of tracking and reporting employees' time. So, if the policy is put forth that we use this system, and this system is not used, then what's the consequence? That's the policy that has to be developed, drafted.
Well, that policy was already passed. You passed it in a timekeeping policy. And I can tell you I contacted 2 treasurers that use the exact same timekeeping system we use, the exact same payroll system we use. And those counties are, if that time is not in the timekeeping system, there's not a paycheck. 0 in equals 0 out. That's not a threat to not pay employees. It's just a fact. If there is no time in the electronic timekeeping system to pull into the payroll system to generate a check, you know, I'll remind you that John Vanderberg said in his presentation, I believe in April of 2020, over a forensic audit with hundreds of thousands of dollars of
misappropriated funds.
Yes, thank you. Garbage in, garbage out. When you and I, Bobby, had a conversation with the auditor about this, and we discussed, you know, this, and he said it's real simple. If there's no time in the time clock, there's not a paycheck. I mean, that is the policy that the county chose. It's the system, and it should not be on the treasurer's office to input time for any other department head's employees. Period. End of story.
But the policy that we have needs to be more robust and a little more defined, because it's good, we have a process, but there's no teeth in it. And I think we need to go back to the teeth in it. But
Well, then what do other
is
counties have? If there's no time entered in the time clock, you can't produce a paycheck. There's your teeth. It's either in the time clock or there's not a paycheck.
I think you're,
Bobby read most of the recommendation. There's a key word in there. We further recommend that these time records be maintained through a timekeeping software that is capability of calculating such allocation percentages by employee. So, to me, the key word here is capability. So, Erica, is that program capable of doing all those defined time frames?
They can clock in under a certain code, which would apply to a certain grant. And if they spend the morning working on XYZ grant, and they go to lunch and they come back after lunch and they're gonna work on ABC grant, they can clock in, under various codes, yes.
This is a lot of the questions that different people have said, well, they can't do it, can't do it, can't do it.
Can't do it.
So the program, according to the company, according to what you've worked with, can do it.
And I've talked to 2 other counties that use the
So
exact
then-
same thing.
You know, that it's teeth to make, you've got to do this. I'm sorry, this is what the county has it's what the board has asked to be completed, and
It passed by a majority vote.
But there is a audit finding, so we can still make recommendations for a corrective action plan. That would be an addendum to our payroll policy, or timekeeping policy, whichever it is.
Would add teeth, yeah.
Where's time clocks on the agenda?
It's recommendations for corrective action plan for audit findings. It's number 3. We've been on number 3 for almost 2 hours.
So the time clocks have something to do with the audit?
Absolutely. There are findings in the audit.
Go to Martha,
And-
I've got something.
Go ahead.
I think a part of the issue is with teeth, employees are caught in the middle right now because the department heads are the ones that are making the decisions to not follow the timekeeping policy, not the employees. And it's not fair that the employees are being put in that position. It is 100% not fair.
Correct.
And so I don't know how we get the word out to the employees. This is not punitive. This is protection. Timekeeping, electronic timekeeping protects the employees. It protects the department heads appointed or elected. It protects the county board. It protects the taxpayers. It protects us from a multitude of things that would take forever to list. So I'm not talking to you, Jake. The problem I see is that the employees are caught in the middle because their boss is telling them, do not do this, I don't care. And you've got a board that has passed a policy in November, and we have that right. Even in the union contracts, which I read at a county board meeting, we have the managerial decision-making process. We can decide, we can tell them, go use paper timesheets, or we can tell them to go use a time clock. That is not outside the scope of our managerial rights in the union contract. So I completely understand what you're saying as far as teeth, Bobby, but the teeth isn't to me with the employees. The teeth is with the department heads that need to do their jobs.
is there some kind of teeth we can put in that rewards them for doing it?
No,
I think it goes-
that
I think-
is going
Well,
above and beyond the compensation setting resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it goes back to, if this is what the board has set forth, electronic timekeeping, and that's what employees are supposed to do, then we just need to help them understand, even if your boss says don't clock in, you need to clock in. That is what is going to generate a paycheck. And then we take up our issues with the department heads.
Yeah, it can be put into that timekeeping policy that, and it's the official record for payroll purposes is the electronic timekeeping entry. And that can be where the paycheck is generated from. That where the numbers that generate the calculated into a paycheck, that can be where those numbers come from. And if there are other numbers that come from other sources other than the electronic timekeeping, they're not official. That's what's in the policy. That's actually there, that will be the official record.
And the payroll department is not required to enter time into the payroll system.
I don't know if that's in the policy, but
But that needs to be in the policy
It can
because that's where, if there's, obviously there is going to be times and functions where there may need to be some aid, some help, but to task the payroll department with entering all the time into the electronic timekeeping system that could be done on the fly, like it should be done,
Yeah.
that in itself should be included, that the payroll is not required to add time.
there's one more thing. There's one more thing. Everywhere I've ever worked, I was not allowed to work off the clock. If you work off the clock and, for instance, you get hurt, then you have an insurance issue, you have a medical issue, you have a claim issue, you have all sorts of those things. And if I'm supposed to be swiping a card or inserting a card or something electronic, and I've got ABC 1, 2, 3 written down on a timesheet, and that's not the official record, I can't use that to show I was at work. That's not the official record. That's chicken scratches. And then that doesn't help me. If the official record is the electronic timekeeping, I have to use that to show I was at work. So insurance or workman's comp or whatever, please cover me because I was at work and here's the official record that proves it. If I go with chicken scratches on a piece of paper later and say, here it is, and they look at the policy and they say, that's not the policy, we can't take that. Your payroll department's not supposed to take that. Your official record is this, and we need this. We can't have that because you're supposed to have this anyway. So we are opening ourselves up to a tremendous liability. And I actually talked with Debbie Thompson, our HR consultant at CIRMA, about this. It's been a couple months ago, and she mentioned that you open yourself up to extreme liability, and as soon as we do that, as soon as we have that heavy and hefty liability, that's when we look at our insurance dropping us. I mean, this thing just snowballs. One, first of all, you just don't have right payroll. Then if somebody gets hurt, you've got an insurance workman's comp issue. Then you've got your insurance dropping you, and our insurance premiums will likely go up at least 2 to 3 times.
But you'll be lucky if it's...
This thing just snowballs and gets worse and worse and worse. And the answer is really, really simple. Clock in, clock out. Use the time clock. It is so simple. The problems with not doing are enormous. And the advantages to doing are also enormous. Why do we want to dig a hole?
No, that's what we want to Anyhow, I digress. So is there a recommendation for a corrective action plan? Is it to continue, or we just want to roll through all the rest of them and then we'll see what's...
If we want legislative to take another look at the timekeeping policy, we can do that.
Because there's another one here. Oh, well, no. I stand corrected. This is not particular to our fund. The next one is particular to our fund. I'm pretty sure.
I would say legislative to go back and look at timekeeping, but I think, I don't have that policy memorized, I know we passed that there's got to be something in there that if time not entered in the time clock, electronic timekeeping system, it just doesn't get paid. Pay comes through the electronic timekeeping system.
That is what the 2 other counties that I spoke with.
Yeah, and we get the time clocks in at the health department.
And putting the definition on the employee or the supervisor are the only 2 that can enter time in. If it does not, if the time card is pulled by payroll, and there is no time entered, there is no time worked. And if that is an error on both the employee and the supervisor, it is on the supervisor, because they have officially signed off on a federal document illegally.
We cannot pull payroll until management has approved. So if we pull it, management has approved it, and if they've missed something, which we've had even when we were using electronic, where some time wasn't entered, the employee missed it. I mean, the timekeeping policy says the employee is also supposed to prove their time. That system is so simple, all they have to do is put a check mark in a box. Yes, I worked from 7:01 a.m. to 11:59 a.m. and then I came back from, it's as simple as a check mark. And that's all that management has to do. And in the larger department, with the sheriff's department, there's at least 2 other people who've been given what is an O in the system, so other, so that they can approve it. The sheriff doesn't have to approve every single employee of his office. He's actually probably approving the least amount of employees, but it's that simple, a check mark.
So I've got an idea here then. It's my understanding that there are individuals in the sheriff's department that are approving time for their division within the sheriff's department that have no issues at all. And I think it's been suggested that perhaps they do it for the whole department because it seems to be going swimmingly. But in that case, it wouldn't be necessarily the employee or the department head, but it'd be somebody who's ready, willing, and able to do the job effectively and
But the
efficiently.
employees still should be approving their time.
They sh-
Every
they
employee in the
should.
county, there's 3 columns: management, employee, and other. And as long as we have a management or other, which is a management,
Okay,
appointed management, like Wendy can do the highway department,
yeah,
you know, and the system will tell you who approved it.
that other fits.
But that other fits because it's been delegated to them. We can't pull time from the time clock into the payroll without one of those 2 forms of approval.
That fixes what I was gonna say.
So if they approve it for each employee and then come back and say, oh, you didn't pay employee Jones for, September 5th, but you approved all of employee Jones's time, employee Jones approved all of their time and didn't notice that their sick time wasn't entered on September 5th, that's not on our department. 2 people missed that, and it's going to get paid on the next payroll.
Yeah, it's, I guess it happens, but for an employee and their supervisor to miss a time entry is just, yeah. I'm sure it can happen, but it should get caught.
I think that goes back to what's been said a multitude of times. If employee and management or whoever might be filling another role is in that system 10 to 20 minutes a day.
Not even.
And checking it every day. An employee probably not, I work today, yep, okay, that's good, check that day, check the next day. The issues arise when you wait until the end of a 2-week payroll period, and then you're trying to go back, man, did I work on Monday, August 26th, was that the day I took off? You know what I mean? You have to be in that system, and it doesn't take a lot of time on a daily basis. The issues arise when you wait until the end of a 2-week period and try to get in and do everything all at once, and that's where the issue is.
But there should be a pretty simple procedure. If the employee clocked in 4 out of 5 days, and at the end of the week of the first week, the management goes through and looks at all the time cards and says, hey, why didn't you clock in that day? And they say, oh, you remember I took a vacation day that day? Oh, yeah, right. Plug him in.
Well, and the benefit of this system, which is kind of what's screwing things up right now, because if I'm employee Jones and I know I'm going to take vacation, I'm requesting vacation in December 1 through 7, whatever. I can actually get on the dashboard, I can go into a calendar, I can put this day through this day, request vacation. It automatically sends, I believe, an email to the department head, but it also comes up on the department head dashboard, or we see them all. All I have to do is the department head, because when I log in, it's right there on my dashboard, any requests for time off, sick time, personal time, comp time, vacation time, and all I have to do is go, yeah, I believe employee Jones, I can look at the master schedule, employee Jones can take that time off, and I put a check mark in that box. It automatically goes on the master calendar, but when it comes the payroll period for that week, it's already in there. It automatically pulls in, so all of these vacation times that were approved before they stopped using the time, then we were getting in payroll where some was here, some wasn't, and it was a mess. But it's there. It automatically loads.
And that also ties into the PTOs, whether it be personal or vacation, but those times are requested, and if they're denied, then that's the proof that says that these were denied, and they can go back to their contractual agreement and say, hey,
Yep.
I didn't get to take it off because I requested it this time here,
Yep.
and I did that, or maybe I did it once or do it twice or 3 times. Each time I got denied, so then at the end of the year, there's proof
Yes.
to the employee that says, hey, I want my comp cashed out, or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
But if there's no proof of request, then it's hard for either management or the employee to prove that there was an attempt to use this time. So it goes back to contractual compliance as well.
Yes.
Is there, one complaint I've heard about time clocks is that when the internet's down, they're unusable. Is there any way to have a backup?
The system will hold it for a certain amount of time. And CIC is in the middle. I mean, they are in the process of securing a backup internet provider.
Just like we did here. at
Just like we did here at the courthouse for the judges, so that if our main line went down, there was a backup so they could continue to hold Zoom court. I don't know where that was. I know they were working on it because they were just as frustrated, that it was down. But when it's down for a short period of time, and I have told department heads, employees still need to clock in. Because when it was down for just not quite a day, when it came back up, that little clock down there stores information in a certain amount, for a certain amount of time. So even though the internet in Colorado's down, when it comes back up, it pulls all that information. But when you go, oh, it didn't light up, and then you say, okay, I'm not going to punch it, we've told them, continue to clock in. And the highway can attest to that, because when it was down and when it came back up, it populated the clock in and the clock outs. But I don't think that, yes, we had issues there too, kind of back to back, but again, they're getting a backup system or provider.
If it's anything like the backup system we got here, if I remember right, Dave Woods told us that within, 20 or 30 seconds?
30 max.
The backup kicks in, and it's basically seamless. You hardly even notice. So it's automatic. Nobody has to flip a switch. It just, your primary goes down, your secondary kicks in, and it's almost literally that quick.
It would just be like buffering when you're coming buffers. But it's quick. Yeah.
Okay, so as far as corrective action plan, is there going to be any recommendation from the committee, or do you want to launch something that back in this is separate. This is a trial balance issue. This is a timekeeping issue. This is
Well, I think we've got to get the time clocks installed at the health department. We can't comply with this finding until we have one. So,
It's still not installed.
no. They're not. They're still turning in payroll based on
Based on the schedule.
the schedules, not on actual hours.
Hold up is.
His name would be Steve Moya.
They don't want to.
And they're arguing that it's going to be a part of the union negotiation contracts, but as I read in the county board meeting when we discussed the time clock and read straight from even the current contract, the county board has the managerial rights to set policy and procedure. We can't change what they get paid by the contract per hour or any of that, but if we say we are using electronic timekeeping, the union contract can't keep us from using electronic timekeeping.
And even the MOU that spoke to records, it said that the record should be current, the record keeping be current. Well, current is what we say it is today. That's current. If the board decides to do this, that's current.
Well, I'm pretty sure state and federal laws state that the timekeeping records have to be true and accurate. So I don't believe you can pass a union contract that states anything contrary to state and federal labor law. I mean,
The
it
union
just,
contracts state the same thing, that a true and accurate daily record will be kept. Both contracts.
so if we're determining what true and accurate is, I just,
No.
I don't think they can stop that, so.
And I think it's abundantly clear if you look at timesheets that were before timekeeping were based on a schedule. They drastically changed with the electronic timekeeping and they've reverted back to, not all, but some, being a schedule.
Motion that those time machines be installed anyway.
I do
Because
believe
if
I've
they're
been
not-
around with it, and Dave has gone out there 3 times to put them up,
Okay.
and it's basically right out the building. For lack of better words.
And if we need to send them with the sheriff escort, we send them with the sheriff escort to do the job. The time clocks need to be installed at the health department so they can be utilized to follow county
Because
policy.
if we don't have them there, we can't enforce that.
That's what I'm saying. They have to be installed.
Is that, who owns that building or those grounds? There's got to be a title. Whose name's on the title for the health department buildings or grounds?
Let's do the rest.
I believe it's actually the Shelby County Health Department,
Okay.
which they just took possession of, what, 3 years ago? Because they were under a contract for deed with Shelby County Community Services for a while, and then I can't remember, it was 21, 22. They actually took possession of it. I believe that parcel is under Shelby County Health Department. I'll look it up actually.
Where's the action at? Over there.
Did you find it?
Well, I'll be close to it pretty quick, but
It's zoom in. It's on South Third and Hickory. So it's right in here. That might be it right there. Zoom in. That's Good Shepherd. So it's over here. That's this one. That's Good Shepherd. That's, is it zoom in? I don't know.
that's it up there, that's community services.
It's
Community
right,
services.
right here. It's that one. Yeah.
That's kind of,
It was titled under.
Who's the health department administrator?
Steve Wiley.
How does a person become the health department administrator?
And my board.
Oh, okay.
Which board?
Yeah, is it the health department board that appoints them, or?
No. We appoint the health board. County board appoints the health board. I do believe the county board appoints the health department, or the director, yeah.
Okay.
I do believe.
Just checking.
Yeah,
I don't
the
think
department
it-
shall be managed by a board of health consisting of 8 members appointed by the president or chairman of the county board with the approval of the county board for a term of 3 years.
The health board is appointed by the chair. Is the director appointed by the chair as well? Does it say specifically?
Deeper there.
Bobby, while he looks at that, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
The board has already passed a timekeeping policy. I don't believe it should have to go before the board again to have time clocks installed. It's been passed, it's been voted on. I don't think it needs to go back before the board.
I'll agree in the point of conversation. You are absolutely correct. It's back to putting teeth in the policy. It's back to if the time clock is not used, it is if the employee was not at work. You know,
Well, I think legislative can work on putting that teeth in the policy, but if we were to pass the policy and the time clocks aren't there, then we're passing a policy that
they
people
can't.
cannot adhere to, so.
So let me ask another question. If the employees have to use that in order to submit an official record for payroll purposes, but the clock isn't there, there are other clocks. Can they use a clock at a different county facility? Could they use one at the courthouse or the sheriff's department or the highway department? Is that option available? Will it recognize what they're trying to do?
If we have them in with an employee number into the electronic timekeeping system,
Now, I understand what I'm asking is silly. They shouldn't have to come to the courthouse to clock in to work at a different facility on the other side of town. But if the department director won't have the clock installed at their facility, it is an option for them to use a clock at another facility where it is installed.
I don't think the director has the authority to tell the county board that we can't do what it is we voted and passed through the full board to do.
Oh, I agree. But like you said, the employee gets caught in the middle, and that's not fair to the employee, and it's not right, and I don't want our employees in that spot. So if the director's going to say no clock in this building, and we're going to tell the employee you have to use the clock, we need to make sure they've at least got the option to use a clock somewhere else. I think it's ridiculous that I even have to ask that question, but I think that option needs to be available to them. I was just making sure that it was.
so we're going to move on to
Yes.
next item. Audit finding 5, 2022-005, material weakness in our internal control over grant reporting. It's going to be very similar to the last one we just discussed. Kind of. It's similar, but it's not. The 04 was material weakness in internal control over activities allowed or unallowed. This is material weakness in internal control over grant reporting. So, the county is required to maintain a system of controls over preparation of its schedule of expenditures of federal awards, also known as the seed fund. Per the uniform guidance at 2 CFR 200.510B, and its consolidated year-end financial report, which is known as the cipher. In compliance with 30 ILCS 708/1, the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, known as GATA. So you have the schedule of expenditures, the federal awards, which is the CEPA. Then you have the consolidated year-end financial report, which is the cipher. Then you have GATA, which is the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. And all these are associated with this finding. The county is required to maintain a system of controls over the preparations of these things. So, the county did not have a centralized process for maintaining its grant accounts, records, and related supporting documentation to ensure that all federal grants expenditures were included on the CFA and to ensure that all state grant expenditures were included on the cipher for fiscal year 2022. The county's expenditures totaling $499,973 for its
ARPA.
consolidated year-end financial reporting were not provided with the grant expenditures to be included in the CFA and the cipher. So, additionally, it appears that certain offices and departments are not compliant with the county's financial policy that requires all financial accounting records to be records and related supporting documentation to be provided to the county treasurer so the county treasurer can maintain a complete set of grant accounting records for the entire county. So, a little bit of history on this. In 2020, you were the GATA coordinator,
I think,
for 21.
21 for sure. I think at some point throughout the 2020, that's when Jared left, I believe.
And then in 22, the state's attorney took over as GATA coordinator. And then with her exodus, then the treasurer is taking back over GATA coordination. Now within GATA, there are multiple,
All department heads have access to GATA to put in their numbers, which the auditors said are fine, but the supporting documentation still needs to be centralized.
so all the supporting docs need to be in your office to support what they put in.
Right.
So this is yet another audit policy that probably goes conjunctively with the original motion.
If you've got something specific you want in.
Well, let's continue because we've just gone through the conditions so far. So the cause of the condition is the county does not have the personnel or contracted personnel with the personnel with the requisite knowledge and experience to prepare its CFA and cipher. Additionally, offices and departments within the county that receive and administer grants maintain the grant accounting records and related supporting documentation independent of the county treasurer. These offices and departments provide the grant expenditures that are included in the cipher, but do not consistently provide the detailed grant accounting records for the use to prepare the CFA and the cipher. So the effect of the cause is allowing these conditions to persist puts the county management, the board of commissioners at the risk of material misstatements being included in the county CFA and cipher without being detected in non-compliance with grant agreements. These conditions also result in suspension of funding from grant funding sources, investigations of potential abuse and or misappropriation of grant funds, and orders to return grant funds. So the recommendation is that the management either one, provide training for its key accounting personnel so that they will be able to prepare the CFA and the cipher for the county, and then option 2 and or to contract with an accounting firm that has the relevant skills, knowledge, and experience to prepare the CFA and cipher. We further recommend that the board of commissioners enforce the county's policy of requiring that all accounting records and related supporting documentation be made available to the county treasurer so that there is a process in which all the county's financial activity pertaining to grants is compiled, reconciled, and included in the complete set of grant financial records utilized to prepare the CFA and cipher for the county. And I do believe that's where, right ahead of the next comment, which is it is a repeat finding. This finding is also occurred in 2020 as the third finding, in 2019 as the second finding. And then it goes to the correction action plan.
So fixing finding 1 fixes this as well, just like.
No, because item 1.
Timekeeping and electronic timekeeping,
So item 1 has to do with the financial records, the bank accounts. This has to do with grant reporting. So it needs to be a separate, yes, it's in the policy. It needs to all be one policy. But it needs to be a separate portion of the policy that specifically spells out grants, how they're to be handled, how the information is to be relayed. But it's not all the records for A, B, C, D, and F need to be reported to the treasurer's office. You know, there needs to be specific policy and with policy requirements with the consequences of not following. Martha?
So 2 things. Under the recommendation, that first paragraph, providing training, blah, 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 or contracting it out, that paragraph is moot. I mean, you can't do the first paragraph until you have the second paragraph addressed, right? Like, it doesn't matter if, you know, we talk about garbage in, garbage out, if the information isn't centralized,
Right.
then it doesn't matter what qualifications the treasurer's department has, or an outside firm isn't going to do it if they don't have all the data. So I think we have to address the second paragraph there first. But my question is, for the CFIT and CIFER information, is that purely payroll driven? So
No,
it's
all expenditures and revenues for grant funds.
okay. So this would be a separate policy that legislative probably needs to write.
And that's where Bobby's
Yeah,
commented on it being about grants.
a grant policy.
Because, yes, having to do with,
I just didn't know if the payroll records were the only
No.
records that address this, but it's all expenditures.
I mean, it's payroll is probably a small portion of it, because we get Rebuild Illinois funds, which is a grant for, you know, millions of dollars for roads, and a couple others that go into the highway, go into the health department, go into the courthouse. I mean, I do believe the second line coming in.
probation had some that came for,
No, circuit court has some for some equipment and stuff, so.
yeah, there's a lot,
Yeah.
there's a lot of grants really in there.
So then another question, if all this information were to be compiled in the treasurer's department, are these CFA and CIFER reports something that you guys can put together through the system or whatever? Or is this another one where the CPA, we just make this a part of the records that we would have a CPA firm?
I think this one we can do. I mean, I know there's guidance in the GATA portal for that. And again, it's just a matter of, I need at least one more person in my office anyway. I mean, you're just talking about a lot more data entry and compiling of information, which shouldn't be a problem as long as I have the staff to do it. Which is one reason I'd like timekeeping taken care of, because that would take hours off of my plate.
As far as these grants, you know, one department there that's large, Bobby mentioned, was the highway department. Do you get all that data or all that information you need from like that department?
I don't know that I've ever really asked for it, because I didn't I mean, it's the first time that I'm aware of that's saying even that information. You know, those departments go in and report, and again, the auditors have always kind of done the CIFER and have done those two for us. I've never been told you should be doing
We already had a
it.
department that was already pretty well covering everything. I knew the highway department had a lot of funds, a lot of grants.
Well, and you know,
They were
theirs is
close
just
to-
motor fuel tax and tax that, I mean, the huge grant one that pretty much runs almost an entire department off of various grants is the health department. Because
So-
almost everything they get, I mean, they do have a levy, but you've got WIC, you've got, I mean, they have so many
So-
grants.
So if they're getting close to complying with all the information that's needed, centralized for you in that department, that's a huge amount of funds. I don't see why most of the others couldn't do the same.
No, they can do it. I mean, they can, and that's just a matter of, you know, having the staff and the personnel and the time in our office to compile that and do it.
Are we had enough discussion about item 5? Because we're gonna go on to 6, and then I think we're gonna have
Take
a,
away from 5, that legislature's gonna write a grant policy,
so,
or is there a takeaway?
let's see where we're at here in a second. Item 6. Because item 6 is very similar to 5. But it is different. One's material weakness and internal controls. So the internal control, that's number 5. That internal control is how we compile the supporting documentation for grant use and expenditures and revenues. Item 6 is non-compliance with federal and state reporting requirements. And this is specific to ARPA. This one is specific to ARPA. The other one, item 5, is not specific to ARPA. So item 6, the county has a grant agreement from the state of Illinois agencies with terms, the county has grant agreements from the state of Illinois agencies with terms requiring compliance with financial reporting requirements in accordance with uniform guidance, the State of Illinois Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, which is GATT, and 55 ILCS 5/6-3131.03. As such, for the year end August 31st, 2022, the county is required to submit audited financial statements, a schedule of expenditures, and a single audit report of the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. So there was the CFA, the FAC, and then the same audit package plus a consolidated year-end financial report, which is CIFER, to the GATT portal. The county was also required to submit audited financial statements and annual financial report to the Illinois Comptroller. The audited financial statements and the AFR were required to be submitted by an extended due date of April 28, 2023. The audited financial statements, the CFA, single audit reports, the CIFER, were required to be submitted by the GATT portal by February 28th of 2023. So we did not report those and get those completed until April 28th of 2023, when we were required to have it in by February of 23. So the audited financial statements, the CFA, the single audit reports were required to be submitted to the FAC by an extended due date of September 30th of 2023. Now, that's a mouthful. And if I remember right, basically on this one was the CFA and CIFA reporting were completed, but since they were not completed on time, it's a finding. It's kind of like this audit. This audit has its own finding because it was not reported on time. And I think this is the same exact thing. So the condition is the county did not submit its financial statements, the CFA, CIFER, AFR, and other required information as of and for the year ended August 31st, 2022 to the FAC and GATT portal and Illinois Comptroller prior to the due date specified above. And then the cause was the county was unable to provide adequate documentation of transactions selected for testing in a timely manner, which caused significant delays in the performance of the audit. The effect is that controls over financial reporting process were significantly weakened, thereby increasing the risk of material misstatements that could be included in the financial statements, CFA, CIFER, and AFR, and other supplementary schedules without management being aware. Additionally, non-compliance with financial reporting deadlines could cause funding sources from the county to suspend funding until compliance is achieved. This is a repeat finding as well, fiscal years 21 and 20, but not reported as a finding. So the same process, the same problems happened, but it was not reported. So there again, the recommendation.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The recommendation is that the county implement the recommendations detailed in the previous findings of its financial accounting records and reports can be prepared in advance of all financial reporting and grant reporting deadlines. So this is what I said was, since the deadlines were not met, this in itself becomes a finding of not meeting a deadline. So back to, I'm gonna go full circle here. Getting the status of low risk means that we don't have material weaknesses. We don't have, what's the other one? Anyway, we don't have weakness in our bank.
And also no findings.
Part of that is not having findings. So if we don't have findings, we get a low risk status, which means we get to where a lot of things start to happen a lot freer.
We have to file 2 consecutive years in a timely manner and have no material weaknesses to be low risk. That's what I wrote down.
So that low risk status starts to improve a lot of things. Not only does it improve the audit, it improves public perception as well.
The next audit is already going to be having findings because we don't have centralized
Right. I mean, that's.
reporting. We already know that's going to be on the next report.
We've got to get this stuff implemented so that it's ready for 2025. And 2025, 2026 are reported timely, then,
And then start.
and you have no material, issues, that's going to be your first
gonna
opportunity
be-
to be low risk.
It's going to be several years for we're on the high risk. But the high risk just comes, down to, with everything being decentralized, it creates the issues of, I think at every finding has that similar statement of all these things can be reported as risk and liability to the county. So back to we've been through all the findings now. And we have a motion on the floor and a second. It's been passed.
Can we back up to number 4 for a minute? I had an idea. We've been talking about timekeeping and time clocks and all that, and my question about whether personnel could clock in at a different location if there wasn't a clock at their normal work location. Do we have mobile clock in, clock out abilities for some buildings?
For some that don't have access to a building.
Okay.
I mean, if we give them all that, they can go sit in their car and clock in, and, it was specifically for like EMA. He doesn't have a time clock in his office. A few employees that work remotely. Coroners, when they get called out, they don't have to come to, they could, they leave from their house and they go to a scene, so.
If the proposed change to the timekeeping policy to put teeth in, but we also don't want to put the employees in a bad spot, perhaps it would be a solution if they had the mobile option. No? It would
The
fix it.
solution is time clock in the office.
Okay. And I'm fine with that. I was just trying to find.
Yeah, because. Yeah. The only other ones that have the mobile option should be is the deputies. Because when they radio in, they need 1 o'clock, because they are now active on duty. They're on duty. So if they get sideswiped pulling out the driveway, they're still on duty, work comp still kicks in. If they didn't clock into the Iraqi Sheriff's Department, they radioed in, they didn't clock in until they got here, there's conflicting data.
Yes.
You know, so does work comp kick in, does it not, is it a 20-year lawsuit, who did what now? We just try to avoid the situation.
So perhaps not mobile, but if the clock isn't somewhere where it needs to be, is there a computer option? Can it be done on the computer on the web-based part of the program?
We haven't opened that option up,
Okay.
because then I can sit at home and get on my dashboard. I mean, which the system is gonna track what IP address, but it's just, and then if you do it for one,
So, when I worked in the private sector, there was an electronic time clock at the door of the primary entrance of the office. And there was times when I would leave home and go to the job site and never broach the door. Management would go back in, I would call in and fix the time. Because I'm here on site, the work's being completed. Those situations are few and far between. That's also private sector. Management had delegation and the ability, because there again, that was a similar situation in punch out. When you're in the field, sundown, well, you're not going to the plant to clock out. You clock back in for lunch. So the management would fix your time card and then plug in your lunch hour. But whether you sat and took your lunch hour or you kept the machine running, that's too different.
Fair enough.
But there is full capabilities in a CIC program for the management to go in and fix things in the event that there is not access to a physical. So really, I don't have.
No need for. Okay. Gotcha.
Now, what I could do from home is I could clock in, I could look at my balances. If I had 12 days vacation, I could go in and look at that and be like, oh, hey, I've still got 12 days on the books, and I think get those burned off.
we call that the dashboard. They have
Right.
access to the dashboard.
I could log in and look at stuff, but I could not clock in from anywhere but the one that had the computer that was programmed specifically for. Yeah. Now, this is nothing new. It's been around for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And it is saved liability numerous times. Yep.
Was that it for item number 3 then?
So is there maybe a conglomerate recommendation for board?
Have most things kind of been put to legislative to bring to the full board? Do we
A
have
policy on grant reporting.
Grant policy and financial statement. Centralization of record policy.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to go back and amend our prior, just so that we have one item to be, where we said that we would, the legislative would take up a centralization, whatever we called it, policy.
So here's what I did in the original motion, is a recommendation to full board to task legislative committee with creating a policy to remedy audit findings 22-001. We could make the amendment to strike 001 and add 01 through 06.
Just audit findings.
Or yeah, just all audit.
Well, and I think if we call it centralization of record keeping, that's centralization. timekeeping records, that's centralization of your accounts, funds.
But here again, the 90-day window is appropriate for the development 30 days after it's already established.
Okay, so you're gonna need a motion to reconsider an already passed motion. Because we've already passed it, we can't amend it now. We need to open it back, we need to reconsider it. And then we'll need a motion to amend, is that
I'll
right?
make the motion to reconsider the previously passed motion.
Is my logic correct? Before we get too hairy.
We haven't adjourned the meeting.
Right, you can reconsider without having adjourned.
I think the motion to reconsider only works if the person making the motion was from the opposing vote.
Right.
So,
But the amendment. You're right.
so it would be the one person that didn't vote for it would have to make the motion to reconsider.
Right. That would be the nullified motion.
Yeah, correct.
So the thought is to redo it, correct? Is that the one that?
That's just to prevent two, that's just to prevent two, I mean,
All right.
if Tim wants to make a motion to reconsider, we can. If Tim doesn't care to do that, that's not a problem. We just make a second motion to address the grant.
Yes, it's the original.
Right.
There's the amended motion.
So, simply stated, I recommend the full board that audit findings 2 through 6 get included in the legislature's task. That the same rules apply as official.
Tim, do you want to make a motion to reconsider to?
No.
Okay. All right. So then yes, we need a motion.
So I make a motion to recommend the full board that items 2 through 6 are included in the policy drafted by the legislature with the same rules and requirements of 90 days of development, 30 days to implement.
Second. Is this going to result in 2 things on the agenda next week?
Yeah. It'll be cookie cutter.
I think once you get through the first one, to understand it, then we'll define the rest of it.
It's probably mixed procedure. We have to follow it through.
I was looking at my phone. I gave it a lot to go.
Somebody please feedback what I just said earlier.
Motions for findings 2 through 6.
Wait a minute.
Motion to include 2 through 6 in the,
Wait a minute. Parliamentary procedure. You have to have voted with the majority in order to reconsider. It's not the one that votes against, no disrespect. But you have to have voted with the majority.
Yeah.
any other question on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make the motion that legislative take out, that we recommend to the full board that legislative take out the 22 audit findings with the same time parameters.
To properly handle a motion to reconsider, a member who voted on the prevailing side is recognized by the chair and moves to reconsider the vote. Any other member seconds the motion. So I'm gonna go back to my original motion to reconsider.
He's got a motion on the floor, doesn't he?
I had
Yeah,
the
he
motion
starts-
first.
No, he started making a motion to reconsider.
I made the motion earlier until I was improperly corrected by somebody of the public.
Easy.
Okay, all right. Motion to reconsider.
Immature?
I will second the motion to reconsider. I'm just trying to get the parliamentary procedure stuff correct. I'm sorry for the confusion.
No, I appreciate your decorum. I thank you for, I was wrong.
Oh, okay,
It should not have taken me 10 minutes to come up with that, though.
Okay, so motion to reconsider the recommendation on 2022-001. Seconded by Jeremy.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion on this motion to reconsider? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, motion to reconsider passes, so the new motion on the floor is,
I'm going to make the motion that we recommend to the full board that legislative take up the 22 audit findings with the 90 days to come up with a policies, pertinent policies. And that they will be effectively implemented 30 days after board approval. No, only 6. One second that.
I'll second the motion.
okay. Motion by Jeremy, seconded by Mark. Any other discussion? Now, the motion is to recommend to the full board that the legislative committee creates policy to remedy the audit findings of 2022-01 through 2022-006 with 90 days to develop the policy implementation of 30 days after passage of policy.
I mean, I'm sorry, what was the word? 90 days to do what?
90 days to develop the policy,
Develop, thank you, develop, okay, thank you.
30 days to implement.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so Q3 budget review. I don't have Q3 budget, so we won't be reviewing it. We do have preliminary evaluation. We do have some numbers on that. The committee was sent that a couple days ago. So, now, is generating the revenue estimates, is it easier this year since our fiscal year or our
Well, if you look at that,
disbursements?
if you look at that, what I did with the report for fiscal year '23, I isolated it to the months of what the new fiscal year is. So the extra 3 months weren't in any budget. It will be much easier in anything that's levied because we should receive it all in one fiscal year.
So heck of a jump. Real estate tax distribution?
What's that?
Real estate tax distribution,
And that's just what goes in the Shelby County corporate into the general fund.
but that is from putting the collections and disbursements all into one fiscal year. Like you can actually look at it and say,
That's what the county would levy for say, I mean, the 25 levy's not out, but those other numbers are what was, some of those are a little bit skewed, but I went back and looked and our actually corporate levy went down from, what, 1.952 million to 1.942 in 23, 4. It's right there in that line item.
Is this the monthly report that was sent out on August 26th that would include quarters? Is that the email I'm looking for? That got the document in it?
no,
I think it,
it is.
I think it came out today, Jeremy, at 12:30.
Today, 12:30.
FY25 estimated revenue.
Yeah.
Not sure I was included on that.
You were,
You know
I
what?
thought you were.
Yeah, I'll forward it to you, Jeremy, sorry.
Sorry.
Clerk's on there, I think Jeremy did.
So basically, this is
I just sent it
looking
to
at, when you look at the very, very bottom number, there is definitely a fluctuation in budgetable revenue, so.
I see you were good at the total general fund number, a little over 6 million.
6.16.
Yeah,
almost
6.11.
Yeah. So that is a reflection of.
I mean, if you look at some of these, and I put the years in, and, you know, some of them are going down. I know our replacement tax from the state's going down. Granted, real estate distribution, I went off of what the current year levy is. As we get closer to, you know, approving this budget, you guys may have a better idea of what you're going to levy for next year. and that number may change a little bit.
Oh, so that's what you do. So you got FY '24, kind of in an actual status, and then you got.
Well, the yellow is what the actual estimate was for '24, which, mind you, Bellwether did a lot of that, and I didn't really have much input into those numbers.
Right.
I can't say that I was in 100% agreement with some of those numbers. The fiscal year '24, where it says 8/29/24, was the actual revenue to date on that date
So,
for the fiscal year.
so Bellwether, on that particular line, they were anticipating a 1.9 number.
But
and
we
we're
were,
at 1.3 currently.
well, but we've got more distributions to come. I mean,
Right.
that's after two distributions.
Because the prior years, we were at 1.95 and 1.97, so,
But those were larger because we were overlapping 2 fiscal years. Which, not 2 fiscal years, 2 tax collection years, which made it extremely
yeah.
hard to, I mean, you never know what you're gonna get. I mean, if you go on down and if you look at interest collected, all interest collected on tax goes into the county general fund. And I believe it was, there's one year, went from 47,000 to 133,904. And that was a little bit because it was an overlap. And then 21 it was 94,000, went down to 47. To date's not real high because we're
Can you tell us what line item you're looking at on here?
49080, sorry. Some of these estimates are just a crapshoot.
Not to change the subject, can you tell me why 43180 is in red?
Which one?
43180? It's listed in red, and I just don't know if that's...
Well, because it was a relatively new item, I need to make it black for the year that we added it in there, because that's the lease that we do with probation with the state of Illinois. I just need to make it black. I didn't get it changed. When Bellwether added that for the 23, because that's when it was new. It was red and I just didn't change it.
I think when we reviewed after 6 months, looked like we were pretty well on target with budget, coming in under budget,
For revenue?
if I remember, for everything.
Just general fund.
Any questions or glaring, this is the preliminary information, so when we start getting budgets and we start comparing against our revenues, we can start putting some hardline numbers together.
Erica, I see the liability insurance and the work comp. Is the property a part of the liability? Is that?
What do you mean, is the property? We pay liability
What is the
insurance.
what is the RE tax distribution liability insurance?
It has its own separate levy. As you can see in 21, we had enough, it's in the general fund, but it's restricted that they took the levy down to 1333 for those 3. 22, the levy went up a little bit, and then our liability insurance went through the roof.
Where's the property insurance? Or is that a part of the liability line?
I believe it's a liability line.
Okay.
The only 3 insurance insurances are the unemployment, work comp, and liability insurance. That I'm aware of. Jessica pays those.
We get disbursement for ESDA.
What number are you on?
42,110. Never mind, I was thinking.
That's a replacement tax that comes from the state of Illinois.
Yeah, I was thinking of a different office. That's ESDA's EMA, basically, I believe. Now you can start to see the SA and sheriff's salaries for the supervisor assessments, public defender. Now we budget those, but those have a direct offset.
And the more those increase, the less we will see a decrease in replacement tax, because that's all in a pool. So it's I know the Treasurers Association has an issue with that because they don't give us, exact numbers, but as those salary reimbursements go up, replacement tax goes down.
So the percentage of county liability goes up.
Well, we're gonna receive an X amount no matter what. It's just, are we gonna receive it in these salary reimbursements? Are we gonna receive it in those replacement taxes? As you can see over the years as those salaries have gone up, replacement tax has gone down.
Okay.
What line item number is the replacement tax?
42,100 through 42,130.
Thank you.
There is some replacement tax that also goes into different funds.
Any other questions or comments about the preliminary revenues? They can move on. So keep this document in your budget folder, if you will, and we'll revert back to it. And we're starting to figure out our final budget.
Preliminary budget evaluation. That next.
That was preliminary budget evaluation.
Oh, okay.
Just, we went through revenues, just looked at them, familiar with them, got document, kind of discussed a little bit. I don't know that any of the budgets have been turned into clerk yet, so.
Budget year starts December 1. Are we gonna have assistance from Bellwether?
No,
No? Okay.
we hired for 2 years. 22, 23. Sorry, 23 and 24 budget years.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just not having been on this committee last year during the budget process. So does an email go out to the department heads, letting them know that it's budget time and requesting that they turn in budgets for the departments, or how does this process work? I'm new.
Yeah, from my historical experience, basically all the budgets were turned into the clerks, and the clerks said, hey, we got all the budgets ready to go, so the budget committee needs to start evaluating and looking and make sure the budgets are work.
So the clerk makes those requests to the department heads to get that stuff turned in.
I can make a request on the department heads, but I'm gonna do it through the clerk anyway.
I'm new to this, I don't know, I haven't done this, so I don't know how it works.
So last year and the year prior with Bellwether did the legwork. And there wasn't any committee meeting until basically it was, hey, here's the budget, you guys need to take a look at it, we got it balanced, you guys need to pass it. That was kind of long and short of it. But we've got approximately 90 days to get a budget passed, so it was good.
We then asked the clerk then to try to get preliminary numbers in.
Right. So, not just,
Because we don't have really that much time.
going back to Mark's question, 3 years ago, there was a series of budget committee meetings that would be condensed about every other week. And those meetings they were on a schedule. There was a pre-existing schedule basically that was posted. Those were all budget meetings.
If we have any questions, we need to actually ask them to come to.
Yeah, so in that process, we looked at the budgets as presented, and then we drag in X, Y, Z department head and say, hey, can you explain the budgets? We were seeing major differences from one year to the next, et cetera. Just go through it. And 3 years ago, I made a request to half a dozen different department heads, and we came in for a committee meeting and no show. So we took it upon ourselves pretty much. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah. A lot of cooperation there too. To answer your question.
Okay.
So, that in 22, like I said, there was a series of posted posted meetings. It was posted, instead of having an agenda, it was a posting of meetings with the agenda of budget. So,
And we just sit here and look through all those asked for budgets and just try to decipher through them where
What if you
often shows.
schedule the different department heads and go ahead and set meetings so that they have something to work toward and have all their numbers ready?
well, I know there's some of them that already have their budgets ready to go. So, I know there's some of that. And honestly, if there's some of them that don't have, then they probably need to be involved. But I mean, we're 3 months away from the budget period. But this process that I referred to earlier with the stacking of committee meetings, it started in June, late May, early June, and July, and then August, there was passage of the budget because August 31st was the year end, fiscal year end, so. So we're right in the faces. So with that, we're ready to move on. All right. Everybody comment? Everybody comment?
Erica, you were referring to the two county health department, the two departments that use the same clock. What counties are those from? I didn't catch what it said, or did it say, or which counties use the same time clock?
LaSalle and Fulton.
LaSalle and Fulton? Okay. And then my other comment, actually it comes from Practical Guide to County Government Law. Let's see here. United Counties Council of Illinois is what I'm reading from. And the Office of Attorney General is opinion that I'm reading. You've inquired whether the board has the power to apply these personal policies to the staff of the state's attorney, the sheriff, the treasurer, the county clerk, the coroner, the circuit clerk, and the public defender, in addition to employees that are appointed by or otherwise responsible to the county board. The Attorney General, in response to that question, held that the county board's personal policies and handbook have no direct application in the, let's see here, in the county officers and staff. Attorney General opinion. You can look that up in the UICC book for counties, counties guide in Illinois. It's in there. So just something to keep in mind. My other comment is the biggest liability I see are you as board members. You're talking about wanting to send a sheriff in to install a time clock. It seems like everything is about punishment for you. Did I mishear? You wanted to take the sheriff in to do the time clock? Was that said?
So it was mentioned in conversation.
It was
But
mentioned?
the whole point of time clocks is to reduce liability on both the employee and the employer.
I understand that, but it's not the time clock I have a problem with. What I have a problem with is that you've had departments heads saying it's not working for them. They've asked for representation to come down, and you're not listening. And that I have a problem with, because the sheriff has showed up at the meetings and said, it is not working for them. You're not wanting to address that at all. You're wanting to say it's going to be my way or the highway. And I do hope you look this up, and I do hope you read it, because that is an AG opinion that says they withheld.
What was the number on that opinion?
What's that?
What was the number on that opinion?
Pull it back up.
Well, you found it.
I'm not finished with my comment. So, anyway, Illinois General Opinion number 1-02-007. This handbook, and there's a lot of different opinion numbers here, but let me give you the name of the book. Practical Guide to County Government Law, UCCI, United Counties Council of Illinois.
So what
What's that?
AG opinion were they referencing in their guide?
There's like several different numbers down at the bottom of that page for the AG opinion, but I can tell you what I've got. I've just got the page because I'm not looking at the whole book here, but let me pull that back up.
It's page 176.
Page what?
176.
176?
Yep.
Thank you. Or actually, this part's on page 177, and it says Attorney General Opinion number 1-02-007, and then number 9. I mean, it lists several different opinions, but that is the first one listed. 1-02-007, 2002. So, just something to think about, look at. I don't know if there's something more recent, maybe there is, but this is the 2024 guide for counties. So, I'm not sure why it would be in the 2024 guide for counties, unless that it's the most current. Yeah, could be wrong, I really don't know. Just found that, something.
The guide is written by UCCI, right? Yeah, so UCCI is just a lobbying council for the county.
What's that?
It's just a lobbying council for the counties. So they help laws and the structure through the state,
But they put an Attorney General's opinion on that in there.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not a thing because it's an.
And it may not be, it's just 2024's book, that's all I'm saying. So,
It's interesting that those AG opinions basically say that the county board has no say over the policy that needs to be uniform across the county. It's really interesting that, and I'm gonna.
I'm just reading what it says.
I know, but
So,
it's interesting they put that in writing because, you know, the job and the function of the board is to create policy, uniform policy, as well as maintain the budget. So for the AG to hamstring one of the parts of the board's responsibility is quite intriguing.
well, it's what's in the book, I read it, which a lot of you read what's in books too, and I don't think you always interpret it right. But anyway, my other question is, the other liability issue I see is our treasurer takes verbal FOIA requests. If she's taking a verbal FOIA request by phone, and the person disputes that she responded within the time, how can that not be?
Where are you leaving?
You don't need to leave, come on,
Take it.
stand up, be a big girl.
Come on!
How could that not be a liability on the county? Because if she doesn't
You have
comply,
public official, please.
if she does not comply with the FOIA request, there's nothing. She has nothing.
Right,
There's nothing written down, there's no documentation,
right.
and that makes the county at a liability for lawsuits. It absolutely does, whether you want to admit to that or not. So verbal FOIAs, you know, most places have policies. You only have a policy here for the board. But what's her policy is I accept verbal FOIAs. And then my other question is, there were 16 attachments sent in 90 days, 3 months to the watchdogs with no FOIA request. Now, if you figure that out for the year, that it would be, I believe, 64 requests for the year. But yet, that doesn't bother you at all. But you want to go after private citizens, who you're supposed to serve. You serve us. And you're going after private citizens? I remember the last thing I said to you at the last board meeting is, who protects us from you? And you become the very thing that you fight against. That is what you have become. Because who is protecting us from you? You have called us liberals, which is untrue. Untrue, at least for me. There might be some other names on there, but I'm not a liberal. And I'll tell you what, when you live in ruby red parts of our county, that's dangerous sometimes, because I've talked to a lot of people, even from Moultrie County, that said they have people going after people with different political views. And you're setting people up and saying they're liberals, and that's just not correct. Not correct at all. So my question is, how come you could go after private citizens, but you don't care that they've said, how much time is that on a telephone? For 64 FOIAs, if they do 16 every 3 months, verbal, how much time is that on a telephone that office work is not getting done because she's on the phone taking verbal FOIAs when you could shoot an email and it's done, quick. And according to Mr. Kraft, I believe it was, on one of his things, he said, you can't weaponize FOIA. You just have to comply. FOIA, you don't weaponize FOIA, but that's what you're screaming about. I remember having some state's attorney office, WA&D, I think, played the clip over and over and over again and said, all these stupid FOIAs. And a lot of you shared that. You shared it. And you said, that's part of your job, to answer. Guess you changed your mind, right? Like I said, you become the very thing that you were supposed to be fighting against. Thank you. Go.
Hang around a minute.
Public body comment. Go ahead.
Okay, so August the 8th, I sent a FOIA to Erica, and it's the exact wording. Pursuant to FOIA, please provide the bank reconciliation reports for all checking and savings accounts for the month of March 24. So this was in August, March is long gone. I got back, the reconciliation reports are attached. I got 6. And I said back to her, it appears you've missed a few. Please remit as soon as possible. Thank you. And she said, I have not missed any. So I really have a problem with sitting in a meeting and going through all this nonsense tonight. One of those responses, I'd have to tell you which account number, I think it's 078. It's a BC bank account. It's got checks that were written more than 2 years ago that still haven't come back yet. They've not been turned over to the state as unclaimed property. I mean, we've got a policy for everything else, but we don't have a policy for that. Out of, I think it's 59 accounts, might be off on the numbers, I got 6. So I have a problem with the person that sat over there that left because she knew she was getting ready to get railed for this kind of behavior, her leaving the meeting and calling Teresa a B word last week and call somebody a butthole or whatever the hell it was the week before that. I have a problem with that. If you want to talk about fining somebody, you need to talk about some of your office staff, because if people did that in the real world, they would get fired. You sit here and you talk about all these budget things and this and that and the other. We sit and talk about for hours and get nowhere. And she leaves the meeting because she doesn't want someone to say, where's the other, 53 reconciliation reports, Erica? Do your accounts not reconcile? Because there's some basic numbers that we're not getting. It doesn't matter what CPA that we hire. If we have a problem, it's got to be dealt with. And I understand. I'm not a CPA. I don't maintain to be. But if you get into a pickle, if I get into a pickle with a checkbook or anything I'm adding, sometimes you can look at it too long. You say to somebody next to you, just add that and tell me what you get. Because I know it should come out and it's not. And a lot of times you look at your tape, you go, well, I transposed the numbers twice. And it comes out. When it doesn't, you have to ask for help. If that's where we're at, then she needs to ask for help. Because there are people that will help her. We're not completely unapproachable. I want to see it right. And if it's a software thing, fine. I've seen things that make me nervous. I've seen things where interest on one CD's put in, but it's not matured. I've seen things where, a few dollars worth of interest is put in the revenue report, but not the rest of them. I mean, it's just a shit show. You don't know what you're going to get month to month. And when I see that, there is no logical explanation why you would put an unmatured CD's interest in for one, but not the rest. And so someone needs to take the reins on this and maybe take it away from her and help her get it squared away again so these numbers do make sense. Because it would drive me freaking nuts. You can shake your head all you want. I can show you, Martha. It doesn't make sense. If your bank gives you, if you have 10 CDs and you get interest on all of them and none of them have matured and you're putting in 3, where's the other 7? When you don't put the numbers in at the right time and don't date them right, then you're basing your account balance on something that's not accurate. You can't add March 31st interest in the middle of April and then wonder why your numbers are off. You've got to put it in when you accumulated that interest. So I don't like her leaving meetings like that. She doesn't give a board presentation. She doesn't give the board members even the report. And frankly, I could come up with a report because she takes the numbers off the statement and puts them on the report. If she won't show up, she won't answer questions, she runs people off, she calls board members all sorts of terrible names, won't send them the reports, or doesn't send them all, doesn't give reconciliation reports. If you look under just go to Dr. Google, the word fraud comes up. And you've got to stop with the red flag stuff. We've got to fix whatever's wrong and make it right again, because this is concerning. Your job as board chair is to pull the reins on some of this. It's concerning, and it's not just me. So somebody needs to figure out why they don't make sense.
My job is to be able to rein in any public official?
No, we're not going to twist this. We're not. It's not your turn to talk.
One.
No, I'm saying
I'm
to
asking
you.
a question.
No,
You made a
I'm
statement.
not. I'm not talking.
You
We're
made a
not having a
statement.
discussion.
Okay, fine.
I'm saying to you, it is the job of someone, whether it be you or the group of you, to say, look, there's an issue. The public is asking questions. Laugh all you want, Martha. Look at the numbers. If you can add 2 and 2, you can get 4. I want them to come out. I want them to come out. I want to see that they're perfect, and I want to see that people are paid. I want to see that we get all the grants we can get. I want to see us make a lot of money in our interest, and I want to save the taxpayers some dollars. That's all I'm here for. I get nothing for this. You can smirk and be snide all you want when you see me at the store, and she can run out, but it doesn't change anything. Nobody says, let's fix it. When are we going to fix it? That's a simple, simple thing. Go back to when it reconciled and move forward. Ask for someone to help. It's that simple.
Public comment. Go ahead.
Martha, I hope you and your sister are sure happy about taking Chris Beam and my daughter to the Springfield, and they have to go over there to defend themselves because you claimed you got cheated. You guys were indicating my daughter and Chris Spain didn't tell the truth. They lied about what they did. I can tell you right now, you can get out one of your notebooks and your friggin' carrier, and you can write down, my daughter doesn't lie, and she didn't cheat, and she didn't steal. And don't forget it. So this is nothing but a big joke. The problem with the audit is the same guy as the guy that you guys seem to worship. That's who brought him here. You're all representing Kirk Allen. You're not representing the community. You got your butt trumped in your own neighborhood because you wouldn't defend the community. You were a fan of Kirk Allen, and you still are. That's the reason you couldn't even get 30% of the vote. Do you think the whole public here is stupid? Bobby and Jeremy sat here and tell us we can't farm. That is not the truth. It's a friggin' lie. We can farm if we want to because all other counties do. No, you don't listen to us. You don't care what my opinion is. You don't care what her opinion is. You're only interested in Kirk Allen's opinion. I was here a week ago Monday to the court for where you were trying to prove that Ruth did something wrong. 4 of you in this room were sitting there. You couldn't hardly wait to make sure she got proved wrong. You're sitting there with your friends at Edgar County Western. They're our problem. I don't think you guys would necessarily be our problem if you quit listening to them. I mean, this is sickening. You guys got your butt trumped in the primary election because you listen to the wrong people. You don't care if we lose money. Erica talks about we don't have enough money. We've got $9 million more than we had in 2019. How can we be out of money? I've got it on the annual report. On her annual report, we've got $9.3 million more in 51 months than we had previously. We probably got more this year. That was considering November the 31st of last year. In the previous 51 months, according to the annual reports, our funds gained $9.3 million. It's in black and white, it's not me. At the end of December of last year, 2023, we had 14 million drawing less than 1% interest. I made that up from the return FOIA from Erica where she gave me the interest rates, and all I did was fill in the blanks of what money there was. So it would have been at the last fiscal audit. The previous audit was for 15 months because there were 3 months out of all. I don't know that we drew 1% for the whole 15 months. I mean, this is just all crazy. Jeremy, you can't say we can't farm. You told Carol in September when you wrote that crap up, that you wrote it. It didn't worth the paper it's written on, as far as I'm concerned. This auditing firm, they were brought to you by Kirk Allen, just like Hanlon was. So you don't like Ruth, Lori because she tells the truth. You can't stand it because she tells the truth, so you gotta get her. I mean, this is just a mess, a joke. You made a joke out of the county. You let Kirk Allen make a joke out of you. I mean, this is just crazy. You don't get it at all. I don't get it. I mean, I've been called stupid. I've been called all kinds of things. I've been called a liar by Sonny. My wife's been called a liar by Mark. I mean, this is crap. Just crap's all it is. I mean, don't you know what the community thinks? Don't you care what they think? You don't want to be on their side, ever? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the election. If this crap continues, you won't get elected either. It won't happen. We're sick of it. The whole community's sick of it. Everywhere I go, they're sick of it. I can't go to Walmart or I can't go to the restaurant. I can't go anywhere without someone thanking me for trying to protect Shelby County. So you think I don't know what I'm doing. So Martha, she gets 27% of the vote, I get 78. This is not comparing apples to oranges. I got 50% more of the vote in my area than she did in her. What does that tell you? Christine won big time. You got beat big time, Martha. You got beat by 37 points.
Sure did,
We got beat by more than that.
sure did,
Yeah,
100%.
that's not our fault. That's
Never
not-
said it was your fault.
Well, you sat right out there and told me what night you got cheated. You went through it with me. You told me you got cheated. How'd you get cheated? Who cheated you?
I did not say that.
That is a bald-faced lie because you sat right down there and told me that, and Sonny heard you, and so did Bobby. Both of you heard it.
Yep.
We were all three standing there. Did she say she got cheated or not?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, no, you can't remember it. But
I'm not gonna talk politics in a public forum.
that's not
in a public
politics,
meeting.
that's facts.
No, you've been stating political figures for the last probably 5 minutes. So I'm not gonna discuss politics.
So you want to try to prove me a liar? You want to try to prove Shelby County First a liar? What's they lie about? What's wrong with Ruth? What problems have you got with her? You went after her. It was obvious.
I had to defend myself, Jake.
Defend
I had to
yourself.
defend myself.
She asked you
She engaged me in a legal proceeding and denied me counsel.
who won the,
She denied me counsel.
who won the hearing.
I did. Because if she won,
I don't think that's the way I heard it.
then I would
the
have
judge.
transferred the documents.
So the judge didn't know what.
So
he
you're
did.
holding out the documents on purpose?
No.
Yeah,
If
you are.
she won,
You are.
I would have transferred the documents according to the subpoena. She withdrew the
She
subpoenas.
didn't have to pay, did she pay $650 that your lawyer and your friend's lawyer?
It's
whatever?
irrelevant.
Of course she didn't.
But what I'm saying is, she conflicted her relationship with an elected official, so I had to respond in a legal proceeding with my own
What?
counsel.
You used our prior state's attorney as your attorney, and you think that's this deal with Ruth is a problem? Oh, my word.
I mean, the
We
front
have
page- the
a
front
right
page of
to
the-
know what was in those drafts. You have yet to send them to the other board members. And that is a problem, Bobby. This isn't about your ego. You cannot do that. You work for the taxpayers. That belongs to
I
us.
sent the
You
draft
said
to
tonight
guys.
you didn't send it, and in public safety, all 4 board members didn't get it, including this one back here. They've not received it, and that's because of you. That's because of you. That's why you're getting subpoenaed. People are sick of your crap. You better be
The
ready to everybody.
committee reviewed this, and now since it's a public document, since we reviewed the document, I'll send it to the clerk and it's foiable.
Ruth Woolworth makes you look like a joke, she makes Jeremy look like a joke, she makes Martha look like a joke, she makes Sonny look like a joke, in my opinion. And I'm entitled to my opinion, and you can have
You
yours.
absolutely are entitled to your opinion.
That's harsh.
There you go, that's my opinion.
That's harsh.
So public body comment. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I want to talk about budget.
This is a budget committee.
I know, okay, I just, as president of the 708 board, we only meet quarterly. I mean, I'm not in the office every day. My committee's not in the office every day. We need deadlines because I have to schedule special meetings to work on the budget, and we've given no dates of when anything is due. And it would be extremely, and we're gonna work on it next week, but we need timelines. And because we're not there every day, and it would be very helpful is when you're working on this with Jessica.
Well,
that you work-
our fiscal year is December 1,
Yes, I know that,
so we can pass a budget up to November 30th.
right.
So
Doesn't it have to be published and stuff?
You've got so many days that it has to be
it has to
published.
stand for 15 days.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it can be.
Yeah,
So it has to be approved
yes,
by basically the November board meeting.
okay, yes.
So November board meeting is your deadline.
Well, you need the budget before that. You have to approve our budget.
We have to be able to, right, but that budget meeting or that board meeting is when we have to put it in there. So yeah, you need to have your budget ready now.
Okay, so another thing is when you have, when you meet with department heads, it really is better if you schedule a time.
Well, that's what
Especially
we-
if you're
that's what
gonna
we used
meet
to
in the
do.
evening. No, well, you've done it different ways over the years. And,
I've only been involved in this twice.
okay,
In
so,
21 and now.
yeah, so it's been done differently, but, or asking department heads when they want to come and meet. We're meeting these dates, what date do you want to be there? Those kind of things will really help. I mean, they help me because I've got to work it into my schedule.
Yeah.
Because your meetings are at 9.
Right, and that's when most department heads should be off work by then.
Right,
So we can take
okay.
time
But
when they're off work, and we can take time when we're off work, and
But we just appreciate the timelines because it makes a big difference for us.
I think what Bobby's
You'll
getting
have to
at,
ask Kirk first.
I think what Bobby's getting at is, since the budget year starts December 1st, at your convenience, what works with your schedule, put your budget together.
Yeah, I
Well,
know
I mean-
that, I know that, but we need to, we were always given a deadline. Your budget is due by this date, so that the board has time to compare it with the numbers and what's available.
do you remember where that came from,
What?
that deadline?
No, the board always said it.
Yeah, where is it in the, see, this is the part of policy and procedure. You know, the
Right.
board creates a policy for hiring an outside audit firm for
Right.
doing this thing. But it shouldn't be that the board has to make a decision every year. It should be, budgets must be turned in at least 90 days prior to the board approving, the board meeting that would approve the budget, or 75 days, or 60 days, whatever that case may be. But back to policy and procedure, I mean, we come back in 2 weeks and write a board policy that we can approve in the September meeting that says, here's the timeline, this is SOP across the board, and we don't have to worry about having this conversation. And this is the part of the things that I believe the previous board chairmen just did things at will. Largely at will.
Well, I think the budget, well, who's obviously is also the chair of this committee.
Yep.
I think they always said it, and they just sent it to us, and
Yep.
we tried to meet the deadlines.
But you had meetings because sometimes you got told you got to cut so much money, so you had to go back and work on your budget again. You can't just tell them to come this day and we're going to do the budget, because you're not going to give them maybe all the money that they want. Maybe they're going to want more money than what you can give them.
But I think by meeting with the department heads, they also find out that you probably as board members don't realize how much money like probation gets from the state that doesn't come out of your general fund. It passes through it, but it's not part of your general fund. So, and you may not know that. And it helps the budget committee to understand that, well, this much of it is already covered by the state. This is how much we have to pull out.
But we have to budget all of it.
Well, I know you do, but you already know what you're getting from the state. So that helps you when you work on your final budget. But I think it also helps board members to better understand how the departments function if they actually meet with the heads of the departments.
Right, so I have a preliminary plan. You
Okay.
take all the proposed budgets in.
Okay, good.
You put it against the revenues,
Yeah, that's what you do.
see how close we are.
Yeah, I know that's what you do. And then you find out what your levy is, and then you decide.
Yeah, I'm not real tickled with what happened a couple of years ago.
Me either. Because our department was the one that was hit
Yeah.
the hardest. Yeah. So, I'm just protecting my 708, sorry.
No, I understand.
Thank
Like I
you.
said, I wasn't really tickled about that levy,
Yeah.
but it's kind of the hand you're dealt.
I know.
seemingly.
I know, I understood that. But, yeah, timelines really help us. So I'm thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that.
So did you get a first price on audit yet?
Was there any public body comment? Go ahead.
So, a couple of things. I've heard, I guess to start off, I think we all share a passion for our community and want to help better it. And a lot of these things that we disagree about is mainly semantic stuff, but everybody wants to help better Shelby County, I think. That's probably one thing we can agree on, right? Everybody? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anyways, so I heard the sheriff talk a couple months back at one of the committee meetings about not yet having a negotiating meeting set, and his contract, or the sheriff's department contract, was up in September 1st, I think. And he just reported at that meeting upstairs, as part of the sheriff report, you're supposed to give a report, a presentation, that he's now outside of the previous contract, and just didn't know if we had because you're talking about budget, and of course that, I guess, plays into that some too, because there's some financial stuff. If there was any game plan or any strategy to meet and get into negotiations with that, how that was shaping up.
Yeah, we've got to get in negotiations.
Sure. Okay. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of times we get really passionate, and one of the things I'm concerned with as far as transparency goes, and I know Christine got really passionate about it. People have paid taxes. They want to see where their money's going. Nobody, I don't know how to best describe it, but if you were to replace the treasurer as a person with just an office, just like you said with Rob Hamlin, as instead of the state's attorney's office, you're looking at that individual, it's the office. Okay, well, when the treasurer's office is saying that go ahead and make all FOIA requests because that just means I'll get overtime, and it's basically signaling to the public that you do this and you're just going to cost your fellow neighbors and everybody, taxpayers, more money, so keep it up. And I just don't like that tone. I know she's an elected official. I know it's nothing against her. It's just, I think as a community, I think we can sit down with each other and work together on some things and cool some of the tensions. I think situations like talking about sending a police escort to the sheriff or to the health department, I think that's kind of inappropriate there too. I think if you were to sit down, Bobby, as the chairman with the health department administrator for a 3-hour discussion, you guys could probably leave the table a lot better understanding one another and a lot better path of way to move forward. And I know Sonny is a prime example for that. The dive team had some issues. Sonny and them got together for the better of Shelby County and put their differences aside and figured out a path to move forward. And I just think a lot of times the emotionality and the passion and everything just takes the front seat. And I think we got to remember that for Shelby County to win, some of that stuff has to just go to the side, and we have to be on a solid foothold going forward. Just my opinion.
Thank you.
Public comment. Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, I haven't looked at the other meeting, so I don't know, but I have an email here that was sent to me as a board member and stuff. Has the 22 audit been completed? Is it done?
We have the final draft.
Is the final draft?
It's still a draft until we approve it.
Is it the one that all the board members got, that's the final one, or have you got one updated from that?
No, I have the one that we had discussed on today
That I don't have
that
then?
you don't have. And like I said, as whoever was walking out the door earlier, I don't remember who all it was, but that document now has been discussed in a public forum, will be sent to the clerk, and it's FOIAble. It will also be sent to the board, or rest of the board. But this draft includes the financials and footnotes. That's one of the biggest parts of what was missing in the Thursday county board meeting, but as well as the CFA cipher reports.
So at the board meeting next Thursday then, will we vote to approve that? Will we vote to approve that, or do we have any say-so? Does this take care of the IDOT letter that is threatening the grant money?
Okay, so I'll go back and address the IDOT letter the way I've addressed it time and time again.
If you've already done it, I'm sorry, but I have another meeting to go to.
Right. So the IDOT letter is a form and function of formality. The facts that the auditor has been in contact with IDOT, which is basically a top-tier chain of grant disbursements. So once you're on IDOT's radar, then you're obviously probably on about 5 more radars.
Okay.
But as long as there is forward motion in the process, getting the audit done and getting it, et cetera, as long as there's forward motion,
I won't read your text, I promise.
They have to send you that warning, hey, you're going to stop pay this. They have to do that.
I figured that it was like a warning type thing to get something done. That's what I figured, and as long as you were moving towards that, they weren't gonna do anything to us, is what I figured it was. But the grants for some people are very important, and you guys all got this letter from her. It's very important to this one person, this one office in this building, about the transportation for her clients and stuff. So, okay, that's that.
Oh, man. Son of a...
That's the 23 audit. Are they gonna do the 23 audit also?
They are going to stay and do the 23 audit.
You don't think that that's a conflict?
They're not going to fire us. What do you mean it's a
That's a
conflict?
good thing?
Was the contract for 2 years, or does the board have to vote to?
It was for 2 years.
Okay, I just want clarification on that, sorry.
What do you mean a conflict?
Why would it be a conflict if they're doing the next
Well-
audit?
Well, they've been in court and everything else. It just seems like there's just a whole lot of problems here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so, like I said in the Thursday meeting, they have the baseline.
I understand what you said, that they've got hopefully just about everything they need to get it done.
It'll be within a 180-day window,
Oh, that would be nice.
for the 23. The great question mark is what do we do in 24? Because I doubt they do. I doubt they stay for the 24, unless they see some remarkable changes in our systems. If they see some remarkable changes, they might stay and do a 24.
Yeah, but I think if you can get those changes made, that would be huge for you and for them.
100%.
Oh yeah, well they get to do their job as prescribed and not
Yes,
do the preparation and all
And
that
not
stuff.
do all the extra work on top of
Absolutely.
it, which would make your audit a lot cheaper.
And
Yeah, well, you're probably right, it probably would make it cheaper, but we're still gonna have the preparation.
Yeah.
So we'll still have an expense there, so
Yeah,
they might be
yeah,
a
you
little
do, you're
bit.
gonna get it on the front end instead of
Perfect when we
back
get
end.
back to when we put it out to bid,
Yeah,
Lavon.
yeah,
We actually have people bid on it, because right now,
nobody wants
to touch
because
us.
they know it's
Yeah.
difficult.
So the key is when we pass,
Yeah,
when the
No, I
legislative
think you're
puts it and
right.
we pass it, that we actually have cooperation on it.
I agree.
Because there's a lot of policy and procedure that we've passed
Yeah,
that we've just met with nothing but
resistance.
resistance. And so we'll do our work and
I
we'll see
think
what
they're getting
happens.
department heads involved in the policy making.
We've done that
makes
on a
it-
lot of policies.
That makes it much easier, because
We've
then they
done
have
that.
a buy-in.
We've done that.
And it's hard when you do all the work at night, and they're all working during the day. That makes it difficult, but that.
Well, and I can speak for some of us, that
Right.
we've taken vacation time from work to come in and to be able to meet with them
That makes sense,
during
Yeah.
their normal work hours.
yeah.
So,
I think it's a buy-in, it's just like anything. If they're involved in the process, then they're more likely to
absolutely,
comply with it.
I agree.
Public comment.
Have you responded to Matt Jones?
No, what was I needing to respond to them about?
Economic development, they're wanting us to get involved, they're wanting to hire somebody. And I explained to him, we kind of have somebody, but we've got an open spot on that board over there. And I was wondering if you could put Brenda Elders in that open spot, if she would be willing to do it. And maybe we could all benefit from them going through with economic development. Maybe they can help her and she can help them.
In the board spot?
You can have two people on that, and I am a
Right.
board member. You've got an open spot, and I don't think they have to be a board member.
Right. Right. It can be anybody.
Yeah, and I just thought maybe if you would have a conversation with him and possibly talk to Brenda Elders, since she does a lot for here, maybe she could help that person they're wanting to hire over there, and maybe they can collaborate and do some things together for economic development.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea.
Okay. Right, something went on that one.
concludes.
Yep. Any other public comment?
No.
We're done.
All in, motion to adjourn. Jeremy makes motion to adjourn, seconded by,
Too long sitting.
Martha raised her hand.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Oh, this time, I wasn't gonna be trapped in here.
Let's see.
Cameron's on.
I just say,
I was just reminding Jeremy.
No, I'm gonna go, that's something we can put on budget agenda.
I wasn't insinuating anything.
No, I know, I just,